Are we ready to begin, everyone?
I just looked over and said, oh, no.
Good catch, Mike. Okay, why don't we begin? Thank you very much. I'll call our meeting to order for Tuesday, February 13th, 2018. This is the Board of Selectmen regular meeting, 7 PM. Please rise for the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag
of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Okay. All right, we've got a busy agenda, and I want to go right into public announcements, but before I do that, I should read to you that we are being broadcast live in front of a live studio audience from the Whitney Hanson Cable Access, right,
We
Joe?
actually have a live studio audience.
Yes, we do have a
too
live
today.
studio audience today, that's right. So, let's move directly to, public announcements. Open building season began January 15th and will run until April 30th. Permits will be available at Fire Headquarters, 505 Liberty Street, daily from 9 to 5. The cost of a permit is $20, payable by check or money order, made out to the town of Hanson. No cash will be accepted. Nomination papers for the May 19th town election are now available at the Hanson Town Clerk's office. For more information, contact the town clerk at 781-293-2772. All voters and residents who have not turned in their 2018 census form are urged to do so by the town clerk. Any voter that has not returned their 2018 town census form will be placed on the inactive voter list for future elections. The Hanson Library has teamed up with the Boston Bruins to participate in their annual pajama drive to benefit the Department of Children and Families and Cradles to Crayons. From February 1st to March 15th, the Hanson Library will be accepting donations of new pairs of pajamas for babies, children, and teens. The 11th annual Taste of Whitman and Hanson will be held on Thursday, March 8th from 5:30 to 8 p.m. at the Whitman Hanson VFW Post, 697 Essex Street, Whitman. Tickets are $15 in advance and are available at Duval's Pharmacy, Ford's Insurance, Sandy's Coffee Corner, the Town Clerk's office, or by calling Michael at 781-252-9683. Tickets can be purchased at the door for $20. Proceeds benefit Whitman and Hanson Dollars for Scholars. The Hanson Business Networking will be hosting a St. Patrick's Day fundraiser at Camp Kawani on Saturday, March 17th from 6:30 to 9:30 p.m. 100% of the proceeds from this event will be donated to the Hanson Food Pantry. This event will be a St. Patrick's themed shindig, complete with boiled dinner and all the condiments, coffee and dessert, live Irish music, DJ'd Irish music, an Irish step dancing performance, a silent auction, raffles, and a St. Patrick's Day photo booth. Tickets are $25 per person, but we're offering tickets for $20 each if you contact us at 781-294-1261 prior to February 17th, 2018. If you'd like to support this event but cannot attend, we're accepting donations for our raffle and silent auction. For information, please check out the Hanson Business Network's Facebook page. Volunteers are needed on the following committees: 200th Anniversary, Agricultural, Capital Improvement, Community Preservation Commission, Disabilities, Elder Affairs, Energy, Finance, Memorial Day, Patriot Observance, Nathaniel Thomas Mill Committees, and the Recreation Commission. Applications for appointment and information on the committee is available on the town website at www.hanson-ma.gov.
May I?
Sure.
Mike and Mary, I'm wondering if we have an opportunity to maybe highlight different committees and what their responsibilities are. We need to try to engage more people, and I understand that this is has been the case for quite a while. But I think some of it maybe people might not understand the commitment level that's required. They may not understand the scope of the committee. And I think perhaps a little bit of public education might go a long way in us perhaps getting people to sign up. I may be naive and I will live to eat those words, but I can deal with that. So Mike, thoughts? What do you?
Yeah, I think that we could put something together that at least could be on the website to detail the time commitment and a general synopsis of what each board and committee does.
I'm wondering if whatever you put there could be leveraged and put out on cable and to the Express too.
I would believe so, sure.
Yeah, right now on the website, I have an excerpt of the creation of the committee and what their mission statements
Yeah.
were and things like the purpose of the committees, but.
I was sort
yeah.
of thinking like, like maybe the purpose of the committee, like cut down to layman's terms, probably not the mission statements that each of the committees has come up with. And then maybe something like 200th anniversary, they meet once per month, commitment is 2 hours per month, something like that, because I think some of these seem extremely daunting when in fact they are not.
We can work on that, sure.
Okay.
And we'll get with cable to see if we can put together some sort of scroll or some sort of descriptive slides that could go back and forth during the day.
Okay, that would be great.
You
Thank
know,
you.
another point too is we could have mentioned it at the town meeting. We should have probably did it right before the meeting,
That's a good one.
That
It's a
way
lesson learned
You've got an
for our
audience of
next town
100
meeting.
plus
Yep.
people, so. Okay, upcoming meetings. The school committee meeting will be held Thursday, February 15th at 4 PM. They will be selecting the superintendent. They'll be doing interviews for the school superintendent position. The 200th anniversary committee will be held on Thursday, February 22nd at 7 PM. The selectmen's meeting will be held Tuesday, February 27th, March 6th, and March 20th, each at 7 PM. Okay. That was good. Moving on to new business, we have I'm gonna take some things out of order. We have a group of folks with us here tonight. We've actually got review with the auditors, Blue Wave Solar presentation, and we also have a discussion regarding naming of the Winter Street Bridge after Charlie Mann. What I'd like to do is take this out of order, if that's okay with you folks. I think we could probably do the discussion regarding the Winter Street Bridge first, because I don't think that would involve as much intention with the auditors or with the Blue Wave Solar presentation. All right? Thanks, Josh. Josh agrees, so we're all in good standing. Is there any objection to proceeding that way? All right, not that you guys aren't as important, I promise you that, okay?
What number is it?
3.
It's number 3, item 3 on our,
And
so.
it may be a 3A and a
Yep.
3B too.
So, we have with us tonight Josh. Josh, why don't you come on up and discuss the bill that's presented, right?
Yes.
Please.
Am I supposed to stand, or is this okay? Oh, right up here?
If you could, yeah, that way the people at
Tell us
Hanson
your
can.
name and your position.
Oh, boy,
so
okay.
we could say
Hello.
it.
Yes, I promise. Good evening, everybody. Representative Josh Cutler, thank you for having me. Thank you, Mr. Chairman, for taking me out of turn. Thank you, gentlemen. I have to say, I'm impressed, especially with Selectman Howard with the iPad.
Come a long way.
Josh,
Yeah.
If I had known. But, I will be brief. I'm here tonight on some important business regarding a former colleague, a predecessor of mine, Representative Charlie Mann. Before I jump in, I just wanted to quickly thank a couple folks, including you, Mr. Chairman, and Selectman McHugh. Hopefully you guys heard, but recently some earmarks were released in the state budget. There was an earmark for $20,000 for the town of Hanson for Wampatuck Pond cleanup.
Study, yeah.
You'll recall there was a delay with this, and we didn't get it originally. But then, thankfully, the state's economy has brightened a little bit, and so the earmarks were released by the governor, and we put in our request. And I know town administrator has been right on top of that. I want to thank you, Mike, for all the work you're doing on that. And the idea originally came from you, Jim. So I want to thank you for
Thanks,
suggesting that. And
Conservation is very happy about that. so.
yes, good. And it's a modest amount of money, but everything helps in this environment. So we're going through that budget process now, through the Ways and Means hearings and so forth. So if there are things like that would be helpful, obviously, smaller dollar items, please let me know, because I will make every effort to try to do that. So whether now or later, or catch me or give me a shout, I would love to hear your thoughts about ways we can try to find little bits of money, places here and there to help the town.
Thanks, Josh.
So I'm here in regards to one of my predecessors, Representative Charlie Mann, who I think all of you probably knew or know of. If you'll indulge me, I just wanted to quickly kind of recount for maybe some of the folks who are listening or in the audience that may not be as familiar with his career. Representative Mann moved to Hanson when he was 5 years old. He graduated from Hanover High School. He served in the Army in between Korea and Vietnam, and he's actually a pretty good baseball player. Apparently played baseball in the Army. Graduated from Northeastern University. He started his career here in Hanson on the Hanson School Committee back in 1963. 3 years later, he ran for state representative, and he won. And he served from 1966 to 1970 as a state representative, the same position that I now hold. He took a break and went to work for Governor Frank Sargent as his assistant legislative secretary. He later then went back to the State House, serving as state representative from 1980 to 1994. And during that time, he ascended to be the House Minority Whip, which means it's a leadership position. He obviously served as 20 years as Hanson Town Moderator. I'm sure all of you remember that well. He was a deputy sheriff for the Plymouth County Sheriff's Department. Former president of Hanson Kiwanis, was involved in Hanson Boy Scouts, Hanson Little League. I believe he was on the North River Commission up until the day he passed away. And as you all know, he was a regular at Sandy's Coffee Corner, which is where he would hold office hours, and I'm sure some of you may have caught up with him there. I know I have. Passed away in 2016, and the thing that I will remember, on a personal note, Representative Mann, he actually campaigned against me when I first ran for this, but I grew to admire him and appreciate him because he was always. He had a civility about him, and when the election was over, you forgot about that, and you moved on and you worked together. And I think, especially maybe now, today, that kind of civility is sometimes lacking in politics, and I think it was a very strong characteristic of his. And so despite all that, I'm here today to advocate for him because of the way I felt about him and what I think he brought to this community, as I'm sure all of you do as well. So I'm here about the bridge. We filed legislation back earlier in the session to dedicate the bridge on Winter Street, which is right near his family home. This is something we talked about with his family, who felt very strongly that this was a very appropriate location, and we're very delighted that this would even be considered. At the time, some of the information about Mr. Teague, I'll talk to you about in a second, wasn't known to me, because according to MassDOT, this bridge is unnamed. It was rebuilt in 2010. It's what's called an NBI bridge. It's on the National Bridge Inventory, and it's managed under MassDOT Region 5. So the bridge is brand new. It has no connection to any kind of historical bridge that was there. However, that area, it does have historical significance because it was a foundry, and I believe at one point there was has some quite notable history behind it. Whether it was Mr. Teague or it was Teague Foundry, I'm not really sure what the origin is there, but it did have some historical significance. So in talking with folks at the local level, with the town historian and Mr. Clemens, we were talking about what the best way to find out a way to honor the past and the Teague name, but also to hopefully accommodate this honor for Representative Mann. And I think we have a good agreement, obviously contingent upon your support, to dedicate, to name the bridge after Representative Mann, and to have a historical marker that would recognize the Teague history of that particular region. You should have a letter here from Phil Clemens, who was actually at a meeting upstairs, or he would be here tonight, and kind of outlining kind of what we just talked about and indicating why he thinks this is a good kind of win-win situation as well. So just back to the legislation for a second. So this bill is pending. We still need to have the support, obviously, and we want the support of both communities that are impacted, both the town of Hanson and the town of Hull, town of Hanson and the town of Hanover, although H-towns. My colleague, Representative David DeCoste, who's the representative from Hanover, is a co-sponsor of this bill, as is Senator Mike Brady, who represents both of the communities. So we have full support there. The other thing I wanted to mention is just that this isn't a financial impact on the town. This would be paid for by the state, by MassDOT. So you wouldn't have to fork over any money. This would be something that MassDOT would handle. Obviously, if we were to move forward with the Teague historical marker, that would be something at the town level, but this is something that would be done by MassDOT. So for all those reasons, I come here asking for your support for this legislation, and I'd be happy to answer any questions that you have, and I'd love to have your support.
Any questions? Josh, I think that's terrific. I met Charlie at Sandy's Coffee Shop.
There you
I had no idea, and we were talking about town politics, and I was impressed with his knowledge, and he didn't let on who he was.
Oh, no
until
kidding.
afterwards.
Okay.
Until after our conversation, when he said he had to get going, and that's when he handed me his card. I think he was the sheriff at that time, so I was very impressed. He was a good man.
That was my first meeting with him was there as well, so that must have been the
Very
place to be.
impressed. Yeah. Just to let you guys know, I did do a little research on this, and I found out that there was, so Hanover has, and you're right, Josh, Hanover has their open space, they have a welcome to historical space. We couldn't find anything, right, Tony?
Well, the only thing I found yesterday when I saw you, I went home and told my brother, and he went online, and we found that the original bridge was built in the 1700s. It was a wooden bridge. And we don't know whether it was a hatch or a teague bridge.
Oh, okay.
And then in, I think it was 1907, the existing wooden bridge was taken out, and there was a concrete bridge made, a stone-faced one. I haven't got the pictures here. I brought them over to Mary the other day, found them today.
Aren't they in our attachments?
Maybe.
No, the
Might have
stuff Dawn
included
gave me was
Yeah.
quite extensive.
Oh, I see, okay.
And it showed the existing bridge that was taken out in 2010, that stayed for almost 100 years, well, it was 100 years, and built a new bridge to replace it. And we couldn't find out anything in Hanson about the name, but the name came up when we went to Hanover.
Yes.
So we don't know if mostly done in Hanover or Hanson.
Right. So we've this has been a fascinating historical little detective job, and I very much enjoyed it. So we've contacted the folks at Hanover, and no one has voiced any objection. We've heard the same things and got the same information that Selectman McGann mentions, and that's sort of my colleague, Representative Coast, is working that side of the aisle, so to speak, and we'll be going, presuming the board agrees, that we'll be going then next to Hanover to try to do the same thing in Hanover. But certainly it is an interesting, it's kind of a nice voyage to the past to kind of see what was going on back there, 100, 200.
Well, I did find down the registry of deeds, and this was a while back, that there was a map, and it shows the name, the Teague's name at that bridge site. But that's all they have down there that I could find. There's no
Not a lot of history. on that.
printed history or anything with it. So, and at that point too, also, I guess there was a forge of some type in that area.
That's what I was told as well.
And when I grew up, there was a Hanson Wet Wash. It was there. There was a little building right next to the road, and in the property that the town now owns, next to the river and right at
Okay.
that point. So, other than that, Josh, I don't have anything else.
Yeah,
Yeah.
well, that's a lot.
But there was the picture that I had it was a quite good-looking picture.
Yes.
I don't know, Mary must have it down there, I think, maybe. And,
I'd like to make a motion to name the Winter Street Bridge after Representative Charlie Mann.
I second that motion.
Excellent. And further discussion, you're right, Donnie. The only thing I found on the Hanover site that they talk about was, they talk about this mill was in the southern part this mill was later a corn mill and tack factory, and currently houses a business, which I think is a ski shop. Teague's Bridge on the Hanover-Hanson line was once home to an anchor forge, which may have made the anchor for the USS Constitution. So
That's pretty
they're all
cool.
finding pretty cool stuff.
Yeah.
That is cool.
So motion has been, go ahead, Jim?
Mr. Chairman, Josh, this may be a better question for
Yeah.
Mike, but where the two towns are working together on the
Yes.
actual bridge, is it possible that the two towns could work together on that small park
Yes.
to keep the Teague name
I
attached?
think that's an excellent idea, and I'd be happy to lend my support or help in any way
Yeah,
that
I'll
would be
certainly
helpful.
talk to Tony,
Yeah.
who,
Okay.
I'm not sure how long Tony will be there, he's the interim right now, but,
Only because I think it's absolutely, this is a great idea for Mr. Mann that this is being done, but we don't want to forget about.
Absolutely,
But
right.
you said DOT is paying for the changing of the name with Mr. Mann, but the towns are gonna be responsible for
Right.
keeping anything with the T
Right.
name there.
Right. And just to be clear, I totally agree. There, according to MassDOT at least, there's no name for the bridge currently because it is a brand new bridge. It's not the bridge that was there before. So, but absolutely, I totally agree, and I'd be happy to do whatever I can to help facilitate that.
It was also envisioned in the open space and recreation plan for the, as well as Hanson's 200th anniversary, so we should be.
We
following-
haven't discussed it in Hanson's 200th anniversary. I was a little surprised to see that in the letter since I'm on the committee, but I conceptually could see how it would be compatible, and CPC probably could fund some of that if it's a historically designated site. And it seems from all accounts that everybody's made a determination it's a historically significant site. So, so I think there's, and I don't know if Hanover has CPC, but I think I think they do too. And I've noticed, did you say it was DeCoste that was?
Representative DeCoste, yeah.
So he's the sponsor of this?
Correct.
Okay, so obviously he feels that they're bullish on this as well, and, okay.
Don,
Was there something else about putting it on their land that was on the northern side of,
we'll
that the
figure,
town owns?
Yeah.
You know, it's a parcel of land that the town owns.
Are we
on the
referring to?
northern side
are
of
we-
the bridge.
Are we referring to the sign or, I'm not sure.
Well, whatever is constructed there.
So in terms of
It's a
the.
concrete bridge, I mean, I
Right.
don't know.
In terms of the actual sign,
Yeah.
your highway department will have sign off on, so we did something similar in Pembroke, so I'm very familiar with the process. So they're not going to do anything without the town's like permission, like where we want it and so
Right.
forth. So you can have, or whoever you decide can decide where actually it
Don
should
said he
go.
wants it on the Hanson side, that makes sense. The Hanson
makes
side of the bridge.
Since I represent Hanson, I would tend to agree with that, but that's my bill.
keep an eye on it. Yeah.
He'll let you know when it goes in too.
As a child that grew up there, I do know that, I don't know whether that town line sign was moved to the Hanover side. It seems to me that when I was growing up, that the sign was more south.
We're slowly
like on
taking the land.
Like on the edge of the Hanson River. So whether or not Hanover might own it, instead of Hanson having anything.
It's
there.
jointly owned.
It's something there that should be, defined.
Yeah.
I agree.
Okay, so we should move to the vote.
We moved?
What?
Moved and
We have to
seconded.
vote.
Yeah, we have to move to the vote, so, all those in favor, say aye. Aye, 5-0, in support, Josh, we're ready to go on to Hanover. Thank you very much.
I appreciate it.
Thank you.
Have a good night.
Good history lesson, too.
Thanks, Josh.
Okay, so if I go according to, back to our agenda on the Blue Wave Solar presentation, or did we move to the
Auditors.
auditor? I'm sorry, forgive me. It's to review the fiscal year 17 audit with the auditors, and with us we have Mr. Robert Lynch and Mr. George, is it Gilman or Gilmore? I couldn't read my, Gilmore, forgive me. I couldn't read my own writing. You believe that, George?
3,
Thank you.
It's one and then,
1.
yeah.
Hi, good evening, and thank you. I'm Robert Lynch with Lynch Marini and Associates, and with me tonight is George Gilmore, and he was, conducted the audit, most of the field work during the course of the fiscal 17 audit. So we presented an overview, and I'll have George present this, but we do appreciate the opportunity to be of service to the town. Here's George.
Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. First off, I want to just go briefly over the audit objectives. The basic objectives is to issue an opinion on the financial statements as a whole, and also to issue a report on internal control and compliance over laws and regulations and other matters for an audit conducted in accordance with governmental auditing standards. A brief overview of those results. We issued an unmodified opinion, which is the clean opinion. The financial statements were fairly presented in all material respects. There were no material weaknesses or significant deficiencies in internal controls over financial reporting and compliance with laws and regulations. And there were no single audit requirements for fiscal year 17, as the town did not expend any more than $750,000 of federal expenditures. Just a brief overview of the financial statements. There's two main sets of financial statements, the government-wide financial statements and the fund financial statements. The government-wide financial statements are on the full economic perspective, so they incorporate all long-term assets and liabilities, whereas the fund financial statements are more of a current perspective. It only reflects current assets and current liabilities. So that being said, for the government-wide financial statements, total unrestricted net position was in a deficit of about $9.7 million. This deficit was primarily due to the net pension liability of $13.3 million for governmental activities. And also, the other post-employment benefits obligation was $4.6 million for governmental activities, which is going to change in the upcoming fiscal year due to the implementation of GASB Statement Number 75. That liability, as you can see, is going to have a significant increase to $14.7 million under those new accounting standards, and that would be recognized in fiscal year 2018. The change in net position was an increase by roughly $1 million. Just some summary of the changes. There was a decrease in Chapter 90 funding, which is reflected under capital grants and contributions on the statement of activities by roughly $400,000. Expenses fell below revenues, but increased roughly by 3.7% in total. This was primarily due to an increase in education and employee benefits and general insurance. The Water Enterprise Fund is reported on the full accrual basis of accounting, similar to the government-wide financial statements. The total net position was approximately $12.3 million, of which $9.3 million is net invested in capital assets, and about $3 million was unrestricted in that fund. Onto the fund basis financial statements. The general fund had an aggregate fund balance of $5.3 million, and that's an increase from $4.4 million in the prior year. There is a note in the financial statement that discloses the details of the general fund balances along with other governmental fund balances, which is referred to here. And this also includes the stabilization fund of $1.1 million. The general fund unassigned fund balance was roughly $3.9 million. That represents approximately 17.5% of general fund expenses or expenditures. Committed fund balance of $1.4 million is essentially carryover articles from prior years, along with a signed fund balance of $63,000, which reflects encumbrances that are carried over into fiscal year 18. Other major governmental funds which we were engaged to report on included the Septic Loan Fund, which had a fund balance of approximately $1.1 million. The CPA Fund, which had a fund balance of roughly $1.5 million. The Ambulance Fund, which had a fund balance of roughly $925,000. And the Plymouth County Hospital Fund, which is a new major fund in fiscal year 17, which had a deficit of $672,000. That deficit will be covered through the future issuance of debt. In addition to the reports that I previously mentioned, we also did issue a report on internal control over financial reporting, compliance with laws and regulations, and other matters. We did not note any material weaknesses or significant deficiencies in this internal control report, and we had no new comments in this report, so it was consistent with the prior year. One main comment that really did stand out was the allocation of net pension liability. The enterprise fund, the water fund, does not reflect that liability, even though there are employees that obviously are going to be covered with those future benefit payments. In addition, the water fund was not making any contribution to the pension appropriation, which was another recommendation that we had made. So to make the contribution to the general fund, to make that appropriation, along with recognizing that long-term liability affiliated with the net pension liability.
Yes, we heard that loud and clear.
Yeah.
Other than that, Rob, do you have anything to add?
I have, I'm sorry.
Thank you very much, George. And go ahead. Kenny?
I have a question on the water enterprise, 3 million unrestricted, what is that?
The $3 million unrestricted is essentially all the resources within that fund that are not tied up in capital assets.
Okay.
We're required to separately disclose those resources that are tied up in capital assets and those that are free for spending.
Okay.
But they're still
So
exclusively.
it's available cash in essence?
Yeah, but they're under the exclusive domain of the water.
They
Right,
are.
yeah,
Correct.
yes, yes.
what I like focus on is the recommendations that you guys submit. I
Yes.
think that's terrific. I really do. One of them obviously is for wells, and Donnie, I know you're on you're on the Water Commission.
We got 2 wells we're trying to get in,
Okay.
plus a water tank.
But one of the recommendations that these guys are suggesting is that the Board of Health maintains a private list of wells in town. I know that's not your department, you know what I'm saying, but Mike, we should probably try to bring that to the Board of Health's point, if they, you know what I'm saying?
I believe we have had that discussion.
Okay.
So they're aware of it.
When identifying those wells, Jim,
Well,
is that
it
what you're
is a
talking about?
two-part, regardless of who tracks it,
Mm-hmm.
they're clearly gonna have to involve the water department, because they also need a list of who's exempt from the water billing. So they have to act in concert with one
With the
another
two, right.
to effectuate that.
But if-
Also, we have 3 towns involved, 4 towns, Rockland, Abington, Brockton, and Hanson itself. There's 4 different companies in town.
Water company, but
Yeah.
these are private wells they
I know.
recommend, so. And I think they've been recommending this for a number of years now, if I'm not
Yes.
mistaken, so.
Yeah, I mean, that comment, I'll be honest with you, Jim, that comment, that they're the same comments that they made.
Bothers me,
That
yeah.
bothers
Yeah,
me,
it
because
does.
we need to be moving the needle on this in
Absolutely.
some discernible way. So I hope that, we don't have to address that necessarily tonight, but I would like to have that as an agenda item on what are our action items, and can we have a project plan that's going to address these concerns?
Can I ask what the, gentlemen, if you, George or Rob, what would be the benefit of this for our town, to do something with this? It says, we continue to recommend that the list of priorities exempt from the water billing be maintained and cross-referenced periodically to the water billing records, which is what you just suggested. But what benefit would the town get out of this? Can I ask that? Would you happen to have any idea, or no?
Would it, from our perspective, we do select a sample of transactions from all departments, or not all departments, but randomly throughout the town. And from specifically to this comment, we selected water billing, and we look to see that people are being appropriately billed for water. So if someone's not getting a bill, there should be documentation that they have a well.
I gotcha. That's a great point.
Yeah.
That's why this would be a benefit to the town, to make sure that we're billing people, and make sure whoever we're not billing is appropriately known.
Right, in a way, it
Yeah,
almost,
that's a great point.
it opens up a world of bad possibilities.
Yeah, well,
Um,
yeah, you're right. If somebody, think about it, not that I don't think it could happen, but it's quite possible, right? Somebody could be getting free water from the town if we're not, if
I'll
we're
have
not-
to, every home and every business in town has a water meter.
Yeah, I hear
So
you.
that, I doubt very much if anybody's getting any free water.
No, I-
No, so what they're looking for, Dawn, is, so we know the people that you've documented, but in order to make sure that there aren't people that aren't on your list that aren't getting bills, we want to make sure they've got private wells or some source of
Oh, okay.
water.
Yes.
So that's what we're looking for.
Well, we have a
Yeah.
private well at our own property,
Yeah.
and we use it for the lawn and the garden, but I'm still working on,
But that's a
town
great
water.
point. That's a great point.
Yeah.
Other questions? So again, focusing on the, geez, I keep looking at the net pension liability. So but that
yeah.
$1 million that you were talking about was actually, we were more in the hole this year, is what we're saying, right? That was the change in net position is an increase of $1 million.
No, the net, change in net position
Was
was
it positive?
increased, so that's a
So
positive.
that's a good thing.
Yes.
So we're getting out of the
Heading in the right
hole.
direction,
All
right.
good. And the GASB change actually means more money put away toward this, Mike, doesn't it? By the town? Town's gonna have an obligation to do some sort of more contribution to this point?
Well,
OPEB?
What,
yeah,
what, on the GASB Statement 75 that's going to be required to implement it next year is, it's not changing your liability, it's requiring you to reflect the full liability on your financial statement. So that's actually going to, will have a on next year's financial statements, will have a negative impact on the town's net position as that liability increases.
Yep.
The difference between the two, mainly the old liability, which is the OPEB obligation, is all based on funding policy. The actuary will recommend a funding schedule, and essentially, if you don't maintain that funding schedule, any sort of deficit with respect to the contribution that's actuarially required
Okay.
will accumulate and cause the liability, whereas under GASB 75, it's going to be the present value of future cash flows
Okay.
that are required to be paid as.
That's a good point. So this will accurately reflect all towns' liability
Exactly.
positions on what
But
they owe.
does this have the potential to negatively impact our rating?
Bond rating.
Yes.
Yeah, okay.
Yep.
But it's not just us, it's everybody else in the
Well,
same
The
boat.
bond companies
Yes.
tend to be on a comparative basis, and they will compare the town of Hanson with a similar size municipality, determine if there is a funding policy in place for OPEB, if the town has the intent and ability to maintain that funding policy. And in addition, if more money is contributed towards OPEB, that can significantly affect the discount rate, which is used to calculate the liability. There's a higher discount rate which is used and is justified through higher contributions. It can have a significant impact and lower that liability.
Okay.
And we do have those sorts of policies in place. We do what we can within our budget. And as I think the chairman alluded to, pretty much every town, city and town in the Commonwealth are in a similar situation as the town of Hanson. If I'm not mistaken, there are only one or two fully funded towns at this point in terms of their liabilities.
Yes.
And those are towns that traditionally in a much better financial situation than Hanson or most of the other towns. So we continue to at least make the efforts that we feel would be reflective of at least a positive look in terms of the bonding agencies, the rating agencies. So again, Hanson is not unusual, and when we do what we can, we try to keep up to the best of our abilities with the comparative towns. So again, when they go out and they make those sorts of judgments that, we're keeping up with the Joneses, so to speak.
Okay.
I think, Jim, also the one that gave me a little, a lot of anxiety was that we need to be implementing an ongoing internal program, with internal controls and checks and balances. And I just think that's, blocking and tackling 101 for us as a town. And so I would hope when we talk about, addressing these concerns that we would work through that.
Well, we, at the end of every audit, and it's not just here, but in other communities that I was in, we typically have one, if not two, outbriefs with the auditing agency, and we go over in more specific detail what they would like to see us do. And sometimes these things are more of a short-range, short-term sort of change, and some of these things are sometimes more longer-term. And I think that we have a very good collegial relationship with Rob and George and their firm. And again, it's an ongoing process. They find, I don't want to say deficiencies, but they give us suggestions, and we take those suggestions and we turn back to them and we ask them whether or not what we are implementing or what we may potentially implement will meet with their satisfaction. So it's an ongoing back and forth relationship to try to get to the sorts of levels they wish to see us at. And as they both just mentioned, at least in terms of GASB, sometimes the goal line changes. It gets farther away and farther away. So sometimes it's a moving target. But we do take this very seriously, and again, we do work very cooperatively, I think.
So
with the
Mike,
auditors.
that's a great point, because in here, I was reading this, and so we're not talking, you guys recommended establishing a committee of appropriate town officials that provides for examining departmental internal controls for evaluating its risk and exposure to instances of fraud. So, you're right, Mike, I'd be interested in seeing how maybe other towns could do this. When we say other town officials, I'm assuming it's gotta be employees of the town, right,
Yes.
Mike? To those programs, so you're maybe talking like department heads?
Yes.
Maybe in meetings, that type of thing?
The department heads that have more fiduciary responsibility than others.
Okay.
And again, we have had those conversations. I'm not going to espouse that we've necessarily formed a board, but we have had those conversations, both internally and with the auditors.
What about the recommendation of a town adopt a formal capitalization policy? What exactly is that? So it says, as part of our review surrounding capital assets, we noted that the town has an informal capitalization threshold of $5,000. So I'm not clear on what exactly we're looking to do for that.
That's just more to establish a formal policy of establishing capitalization threshold. And what that means is, on your financial statements, you have to record your capital assets. And for purposes of financial reporting, what level are you going to include there? And informally, and this goes back to when this financial reporting model came into being in around fiscal year 2004, informally it was decided we're going to use $5,000. But what we're recommending here is just to be a formal vote of the board and say it's going to be X. And 5,000 probably for a town your size is probably a little low, that it could maybe be in the $10,000 or $25,000 range.
Okay.
Does that have to take a particular form? You
No.
know, okay, literally just a
Just say,
vote, okay.
our capitalization threshold was this.
So can we plan on putting that on the agenda too?
Yes, absolutely. Right, Mary, Mike, can we put that in the formal? And the recommendation to increase it from $5,000 to somewhere in the vicinity between $10,000 to $15,000.
And then I have to say, I know that we've had a lot of great volunteers up at Camp Kawani, and I know Mike's put in a lot of effort, a lot of other people have. But I'm wondering when we might get the clean bill of health up there, that we've implemented everything that we need to for checks and balances and policies and all of that.
Yeah, because the current article, for the current recommendation from you guys is that during our prior audit, we reviewed the internal controls and identified a number of issues and recommendations. As a response to prior year management letter comments, management initiated an investigation to review the policies and controls and activities based on the prior year management. And that was done, but that's kind of like a carryover, am I wrong? From like 2015, when that's when you guys gave us a formal list of, during our audit, we reviewed the internal controls and policies of procedures of Camp Kawani. The camp computer network was not connected to the town network and does not utilize the town email system. I think that.
But most, if not all of those
Done
have been
now.
addressed, yes.
Right, okay.
We've had, without getting too into the particulars, we've had conversations with George and Rob, and we feel that we have addressed most, if not all of those recommendations.
And I think they did a formal inventory log for all the assets up there on the property too. I believe so, Mike. But could we just double check to make sure and hand this maybe to Anne Marie and and find out, making sure that they know that these things should have been done. We'll make sure that they have been done, Mike. I think they have. I just wanted to make sure that we can kind of carry these forward, guys, in the future and put them on there. I know that you gave us a summation of that, but I think that's important. One of the things that we did agree and speak with the Mike was I think we changed, no more cash transactions accepted up there, right, for weddings?
Right, we're waiving.
Right?
That's a process. that
Yeah,
was
but no more cash transactions, only it's a check or money order made out to the town of Hanson. So that was an internal control that we saw fit, and we spoke to these guys on, right, Mike? So that was done too. The biggest thing I want to make sure of too, guys, on this is making sure that there's no gaps in the sequencing of the receipts. I think you guys have put that in there before. I think one of your recommendations in here was to make sure that there was, at the time, you had noticed that there were some of the gaps of those receipts. So I'd really like if we check both, make sure that the lodge, please, is checked, as well as the Cove in future, if you guys can think of
Sure.
that, okay?
Okay.
That's about all I pretty much had. I'm thinking also, I'd like to see maybe a recommendation to the board of not selling any more up at the Cove, cash transactions up there. I think we need to change that model.
You mean the
Maybe-
swimming passes?
Yeah, I think it all should be probably done here at the treasurer's office from now on. And I think you can buy passes in advance. I know it might be a pain in the neck in the beginning to get that up and going, but I think that's something that they maybe should look into, because if I'm not mistaken, we pull in maybe what, over $70,000 or $65,000, something like that during the months of June, July, and August for that. Do you remember, Jim, or no? I think it was about that much money on it, so, which is pretty significant money when you're just handing in $5 or $5, $10, whatever it is to get in through there, so. But I think those are the type of controls that you're talking about tightening up and making
Yes.
sure that we need to do, right?
Mhm.
Thank you, gentlemen. Jim?
I'm sorry, Mr. Lynch, I had one other question, only because I wanted to make sure of the amounts. On the capital assets for the informal capitalization, you had written down 5,000, but then said possibly up to 25,000?
Well, the 5,000 is in, there was no formal vote, but that's what was being used when the initial inventory of capital assets was performed for purposes of booking them on the financial statements.
Okay,
So, and that's what we said from 10, whether it's 10, 15, or I
Whatever.
probably wouldn't go over 25
Yeah.
on the high end.
okay. And I only brought that up is because the chairman had said 10 to 15, and then the high end was 25, but somewhere in the middle there would be.
Right.
Would be good.
We'll have to
Okay.
figure out what that sweet spot is.
That's
Right,
what-
and
yeah.
that would be
I just-
something we would decide at a later date, but,
And the point I'm making is that there should be the change to the 5,000. It could be 10, 15, or whatever it's.
absolutely, I agree. Okay.
That's pretty much all I had. Does anybody else have anything else?
No, it's a lot of food for thought.
I really, I think you hit the head on the nail, Laura, when you said we need to start looking at these recommendations, and, if we have any questions to these recommendations, ask these gentlemen. And also, one of the things we just found out is what's the benefit for us as a town to make, to do these recommendations, right? There's gotta be a benefit, and if we don't understand what the benefit is, simply ask. For example, the wells. That was a great point, so, I thank you both, gentlemen, for coming in today. And any other questions on this, or no? This is a great write-up sheet, too. Thank you, both of you, for this. I
Great.
appreciate
Thank
it,
you.
know?
Thank you, and our pleasure.
Look
Have a
forward-
good evening.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, guys. All right. Next on our agenda is the Blue Wave Solar presentation. And we have Miss Elizabeth Glenn, Senior Director. Thank you for coming tonight.
I have an updated presentation I'll hand out, just has some additional photographs of our project sites and
This,
We have,
We actually have a
Yeah.
handout on this, too.
yeah, I don't think, I
But she
didn't
said
give a
updated.
hard copy to Jim
That's
and
cool.
Kenny, but they're on the, they're on your,
this one is also
Thanks.
slightly updated
Okay.
from the one that I previously.
okay.
yeah, this is one you sent out today, right, Liz?
Yeah.
Yes, I put it up on their, in their
Okay.
Dropbox, and
Okay, great.
they don't have the color version though, so the color version is
I
better.
want the color version.
We're trying to break Donnie in to use the iPad, but thanks, Ellen, it's okay.
Thank
Do
you,
you
Jim.
prefer Betsy or Elizabeth, or Miss Glenn? Mrs.
I go by Betsy.
Betsy? Okay.
Yeah, thank you. Thank you for having me. I'm here tonight because Blue Wave has a solar array under development in Westport, which is in the National Grid service territory similar to the town of Hanson. And by participating in our solar farm, the town of Hanson can save significantly on its energy costs. So I wanted to tell you a little bit about Blue Wave, our company, and a little bit about the savings opportunity. So Blue Wave is a B corporation, which means we operate with a mission for a societal change. Although we are a for-profit, we're not a nonprofit company. And our mission is to make solar energy available to everyone everywhere, so communities can take control of their energy production and consumers can choose local, low-cost power. Our projects are, as I mentioned, 3 projects in Westport, Mass. We're offering the net metering credits generated from these facilities at a 22% discount to public entities. This opportunity is available through the end of February, and after February, we can't accept any further purchases of solar from the farm. Because the incentive program in Massachusetts is changing later this year.
This year, yeah.
And so the incentives are going to decrease for everyone, but including for cities and towns. So this is our last project in the under the current SREC program before the new SMART program begins, the Solar Massachusetts Renewable Target. So we are able to provide Hanson with 405,000 kilowatt hours of annual electrical consumption and that's per year annually, which will provide an estimated savings of $14,700 annually and $294,000 over 20 years. In addition, we'll provide the first 100,000 kilowatt hours free in the first year with an estimated value of $16,500. And I can tell you a little bit more about the mechanics of that. We have a long history in Massachusetts. We've worked with, I think, definitely over 30 and possibly over 40 cities and towns and housing authorities now in the Commonwealth. Our community solar projects generate a lot of local employment and environmental benefits for the communities and for the state. So we're really proud of those accomplishments. On slide 5, you'll see a map that has some of the cities and towns with housing authorities where we have done business and with some of the contracts that we have in place. In addition to this map, we have 8 other city and town entities and 4 other housing authorities signed on to these projects now. I'll go into the appendices because there's a lot of good information there about our solar projects. First, I have a list of references, and I'm happy for anyone here to reach out to them. And then I wanted to share a little bit of information about the project sites. So we have 3, as I mentioned, 3 arrays under development in Westport. The total aggregate size is about 13.5 megawatts of direct current. We have executed ground leases, and the solar array is going to be on a family-owned farm. And we've done this before where we've partnered with farmers to use portions of their land that they're not otherwise using so that they can recognize a steady income stream from the lease payments over time, which gives them an opportunity to keep farming their land, the other parts of their farm. So we found this to be a pretty successful model. We received our net metering allocation from MassACA, which allocates the net metering credits. the net metering allocations, and we're under the public net metering cap. So all of the offtake from this project, all of the contracts that we sign have to be with public entities. The interconnection services agreement is fully executed, and permitting was completed in March of 2017. The qualifications for our market sector is here under Market Sector A for community solar, which we're selling, as I mentioned, to public entities and low and moderate income housing to housing authorities. Construction is currently underway and expected just actually next month, in just a few weeks. And if you turn to the next 2 pages, you can see photographs of where we are now. Yeah. We have 2 solar arrays on Adirondack Lane in Westport and 1 on Blossom Road in Westport. On the upper picture, you can see, the first picture there, you can see the panels are going in on the racking. And these pictures were taken a few days ago on February 8th. We have 2 licensed drone pilots on staff in our office. Yeah. So we use the drone footage for asset management of our systems so that we can make sure that everything is going along correctly. Yeah. In the lower picture, in the second picture, you can see that the racking is just going in. The soil there was very rocky, which is why the farmer doesn't want to use it. But it also meant that we had to do a lot of drilling for our racking system.
Was it treated? It looks like, it's shiny almost. Yeah. Or is that plastic on it?
It looks like plastic.
I think it's actually mud.
Mud? Okay.
Mud or something?
There's not plastic on it.
They just keep it all natural. They wouldn't put anything on it like that.
Yeah, right? No, we don't put anything on there.
They don't do anything to keep the weeds down or anything, or nothing to
No.
Oh, really? Okay.
We do some occasional mowing so that bushes don't begin to grow around the panels, but typically we don't hinder any other kind of wild grasses and things like that.
So, quick question on the farming one. So, do the farmers use that lease to loan it to the town? And you know what I'm saying? Or are they doing their own?
No, we have a lease direct with the farmer.
With the farmer,
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
And we do pay a pilot payment in lieu of taxes to the town.
I get you, okay.
Yeah.
How many acres is that?
So 1 acre is 1 megawatt is about 4 acres, depending on the size, the capacity of the solar panel that we can use. So I'm not sure exactly for this one, but so it would be about 50 acres.
Oh, okay.
It's a pretty big size of land. Another thing that we regularly do, and I have a note in here somewhere about this, but we typically shade our solar panels with a row of trees or other foliage, so you actually can't see them from the road or from other houses. It's just something that we've recognized that neighbors appreciate, and so we've started doing it as a regular course of business. Yeah. I will turn down to there's a spreadsheet in here and an example of a net metering credit appearing on a bill. So generally speaking, what happens is the solar farm generates credits. We actually have a National Grid account and a meter at the site, and that meter runs backwards as we generate energy and pump it onto the grid. And so once a month, if we didn't do anything with those credits, we would get a negative bill from National Grid. And instead of receiving a negative bill, what we do is then we file paperwork with the utility to reallocate those negative credits to our customers. So what would happen is the town of Hanson would have its electric bills. We would figure out how much to send to each bill according to the past usage, and then the town would see a negative credit on the bill. So, for example, if your monthly bill is $120, you might see a bill from us for a bill credit for -100. We try not to oversubscribe, so we always keep it a little bit lower than the total amount, because we don't ever want you to, decide to do a lighting retrofit and then be paying, for credits that you're not using.
Right.
So if your bill credit is -100 on your bill, then you would get a bill from Blue Wave for $78. So with the 22% discount. So the difference there is the savings to the town, and that's where that savings is being generated. So the spreadsheet that's here shows that calculation of savings, and I'm happy to walk through this if you'd like me to.
What's the gray area? Can we start there?
Sure. The gray area at the bottom is years 21 through 25,
Yep.
which is an optional extension. It's not built into the contract. So our contracts are for a 20-year term,
I see.
and then there is an optional extension for 5 years, and the option is on both of us. So we can't extend it on you, and you can't extend it on us. We would both agree to that.
And the difference in savings is a little over 100,000, right? Or just under, right? 323 minus 414. Wow. Over a 5-year period.
No, sorry. So the total numbers, the totals at the bottom are the 20-year totals. We didn't include the last 5 years
last
there,
5,
just because
okay.
we want to show the initial term. The 293,000 or close to 294,000 is our low end estimate of what you would save, and the high end estimate, based on a range of utility price escalators over 20 years, the high end estimate is the 323,000.
And is this based on our actual usage or historical usage, or is this?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah, I got the bills from Administrator McHugh.
So the 5-year extension would give us another $91,000+ in savings. But I see what you're saying. Because if you look at the cumulative savings highs, 323.46, which is what you put down there.
Right, because
gotcha.
our discount is a percentage off. The higher your electricity prices go, the bigger the discount is. It's not a fixed discount. It's a percentage.
But we need to lock in for 20 years on the contract.
That's right, because the way that we finance the projects is with a finance entity and an investor that require a 20-year term
Okay.
to show the commitment.
So I have a couple questions. So we let you guys put your solar field up on town-owned property. You guys would pay us to lease that property? And then also we would get discounts from the solar towards the town's electric?
So if you wanted to explore that option, we could look at that, and we could identify sites in town that would be good for solar. It wouldn't preclude you from taking advantage of this. You could
But that's
buy.
not what you're presenting tonight.
That's not what I'm presenting, no.
So you're just presenting just a discount on the electricity?
Right.
But you guys put your panels on our property kind of for free?
No, the panels
There
are
are
in
no panels.
Westport.
There are no panels in the town of Hanson for this.
Oh, okay.
It's an
So we'd be
off-site
using
project.
off of your grid.
And you would just get the credits from that
Okay.
project onto the town's
We're
electric
buying
bill.
into a project that's taking place in Westport.
That's, yeah,
Yeah.
okay.
So there's
Gotcha.
no physical impact whatsoever to the town of Hanson. Betsy and I have had a very, very brief conversation about, something potentially in the future that could be located in Hanson, but that was a 5-minute conversation.
Right.
That's probably not even that much, but
Geez, Betsy, does Blue Wave, do individual homes too, or no?
So our two primary lines of business are the community solar product, but then we also have a solar home loan. So we don't do installations on homes, but we partner with a network of installers who use our loan product. So we work with banks to aggregate loan capital so that homeowners can pay for the solar on their roof without having to sign some kind of lease agreement with a company for their roof.
Right,
They
so
can own the
basically
solar on their
buying it to
roof.
own,
Yeah.
right? They're paying to own.
Well, it really is like a loan.
Yeah,
It's a loan. It's not
It's not a lease,
it's not
right.
it's not like lease to buy or something.
Right,
It would be a loan. Yeah.
Wow, this is pretty cool. And you even give us an example of of what the bill would look like with the transfer credit charges. that you
Yes,
have.
and that's a snapshot of the Lowell Housing Authority bill who we've worked with.
Very impressive. So Mike, are we looking to make a motion to vote on this tonight, or are we looking?
I think that is what Betsy and the company is looking for this evening to try to accelerate this. Not necessarily accelerate this, but my understanding is this window closes at the end of this month.
That's right.
I will say to the board, I don't want to say it was a concern of mine, but I did want to check because the town is currently taking advantage of a purchase power agreement with Sprague. I wanted to make sure that if the board was so inclined to go in the direction of signing on this contract, that it didn't have any impact, any ramifications on our long-term commitment to Sprague. And our representative indicated to me that it would not. He doesn't have any reservations. And actually, he spoke to his boss, so it was fairly carefully vetted out with Sprague. So I think to the degree that we needed to check to make sure that there weren't ramifications that we weren't aware of in going forward with this, we've done such, and I don't see any.
In fact, on the Lowell Housing Authority bill, in the example, they're using a competitive electric supplier, and you can see that on the bill above the credit.
Yep.
So it works together, and most electric competitive suppliers will let you know that it's great to take advantage of both. It's like finding a sale and then paying for it with a discounted gift card.
So did we,
So nothing would be set up in Hanson with
No.
well, we'll be basically,
Right.
right, buying our electricity from the Westport projects, right?
It appears as a monetary credit
Right.
on the bill. It's
the
not
bill.
an electric credit
Yeah,
per
yeah.
se, but yeah.
So Mike, with this, are we looking to replace the idea of, because there's been talk in the town of solar panels, Mike?
No,
No, this would still.
no, this has
This
absolutely
is
nothing.
augment to it, right?
Yeah, this has absolutely nothing to do with any potential solar development in the town of Hanson. It would have no impact whatsoever.
It all would be in Westport.
It would be in Westport, but it would not preclude us from moving forward.
With what?
As I mentioned, maybe with Blue Wave, maybe with somebody else, but, should we choose to perhaps put something up at the hospital or at other sites that we've bandied about, it would have absolutely zero impact.
Well, if we vote tonight, do we lock ourselves into the 20-year agreement?
Yes.
And what happens if in the future that we do something with the solar panels? We have to do it with Blue Wave, is that what we're saying?
No, that is not the
No.
case.
This is more of like they've got excess electricity that they're producing, and
Right.
so as part of the deal that they're entering into, they have to offer a discount. They've got to get people to
buy
sign on
into
to
it.
say,
I understand.
we'll spread that discount to you. So that's one path, that's one thing, but separate and completely separate, we could totally pursue whatever we want to do with the solar farm. And
Yes.
it would have nothing to do with these guys.
It could, but it doesn't
It could,
have,
we
yeah.
might say, hey, Blue Wave, come and work with us on it, but we don't have to. It doesn't tie
no.
us into them.
Say Blue
But,
Wig.
but Blue Wave,
Oh.
Blue Wave.
Yeah.
But I guess the question I'm asking is, if we're locking ourselves in with Blue Wave for the next 20 years, what is it that we're gonna do if we're gonna pursue the solar panels in the town? Because aren't we basically buying our electricity from them?
No, it would basically, and Laura sort of explained it in a more of a simple term. Blue Wave, in order to get their solar recs and whatnot, they need to extend an offer to municipalities to share the credits with them, to share some of the savings with municipalities. And basically, that's what it comes down to. We will continue to pursue our own, our own projects, completely separate from what we're talking about tonight. One does not impact the other whatsoever.
Okay.
Because I
And then-
kind of have the same question as Jim. If you were gonna put solar panels, let's say up at the county hospital, and we're locked in with them, what are we doing with the power there? Just sell it back to the grid? Why wouldn't you want to take advantage of the power coming? Yeah, I'm not saying not go with this, but I have the same question as Jim.
Well, generally, if we were to put, and Betsy has a better understanding of this than I do, but generally, if we were to put solar panels up, we would sell it back to the grid, and then we would get credits back. We wouldn't be in a
But
position
aren't the
where,
credits, because they don't give you money, isn't the credits back in electricity?
well, the credits would be back against our electric bill,
Right.
yeah.
No, but we'd be signed up with them.
But
But-
it would not have the impact.
Like, this isn't taking care of all of our electrical needs.
No.
So even if we did a solar farm, and we had net metering on that, I mean,
Okay.
it would be like, it would have to be like an enormous,
So
and
this.
even
you're
if
right.
we had, even if we created, even if we take off the amount that that we're gonna get the credit through Blue Wave, and then we produce our own solar, even if we produce more than we can use, first of all, what she's doing costs us no money, and we'd have excess that we would be doing essentially the same thing she's
She's
doing,
doing.
which is selling it back and
Right, okay.
as a credit.
So the best way to explain, I understand now. So let's just say we had a $2,000
So we could take advantage of both options.
We have a $2,000 a month bill, and we get $1,500 credit from Blue Wave. We still have $500 that we're using of electricity, right? We would put up our own solar panels to cover that $500, and anything extra from that would be selling back
Right.
into the grid.
Yeah.
Okay, is that
Tracy
right?
had something she.
That's pretty much,
I have a question. This is just for
Tracy.
municipal bills, not for residential.
Municipal.
That's correct.
It's all
yes.
from
that's
municipality.
Thank you
municipality.
In
for
this-
clarifying that.
Yep,
For this particular instance, it is, but most of our projects are actually for residential and small business consumers of electricity, and so this is actually a little bit of an odd project for us. We had formerly done many small projects with municipalities, but this one at 13.5 megawatts is a little bit odd for us, and we do regularly have offtake available for residents, homeowners, renters, small business owners, things like that.
How many other towns are participating in this particular?
In this one, I have 8 city and town entities, so it's either the town or the school district. And then I also have 4 housing authorities signed up. And I
The school
have,
district.
I think this,
Did you present this to the Whitman-Hanson Regional School District?
I did, I met with the director of facilities there.
Ernie.
And Ernie, and he
We have
seemed,
solar panels on that roof though, too, don't we?
there are solar panels on that roof and he's having a problem with those solar panels. So I sent him the names of some people to call for that. But there are more properties that could use the net metering credits.
Right.
Gotcha.
I think he's been really busy and I haven't been able to catch his attention, so, might
But
not
he
be a
could be
good time
interested
for
in
him.
this too, yeah.
Well, if they save money, we save money.
We could sell it to the
Yeah.
district.
I just,
Yeah,
I mean.
it's all the same wallet
it's
that
one-
everybody
Yeah,
saves.
exactly.
So I would
Yeah.
support this, just, however, I would want town council to review this contract,
agree.
make sure that, we're not, hey, we're saving 22% this year, and in 3 years, you guys come back and say, hey, sorry, things are slow, and the sun's going down early, like, it's only, and review all of that good stuff,
Sure.
and I would
I
support it.
totally agree, Kenny, because I, the jaded side of me is like, what's the
It's,
gotcha
it's
here?
almost one of those,
Yeah.
it's too good to be
Yeah.
true.
That's what I was gonna say, there's, you don't get something for nothing.
So in this case, the state set up the incentives for solar to incentivize developers to sell solar to
Yeah.
public entities.
Okay.
And so that is the sort of the bottom line, that there is an incentive for the state and the utilities to work together to offer this kind of product, because we have a renewable portfolio standard in Massachusetts, which dictates that we have to adopt an increasing amount of renewable energy over time. And much of this is done at a small scale like this. It's not done by, Hydro-Quebec necessarily. There's not like a huge influx of renewable energy coming into the state, aside from, solar fields and solar panels on people's houses. So that's the incentive that
I
there
think
is.
in a nutshell, basically, the people that really benefit from this, other than us getting the credits, is Betsy's company, because Betsy's company has been told by the state that they need to involve municipal entities. So that's why she's here.
That's why they get
They-
some of it.
In a sense, they've got to comply with what the state has told them they need to comply with. So that's why they are in a position where they have to, and I don't mean to say that in the pejorative, but
No.
they have to bring municipal partners in to be in compliance with the mass regulations, the mass laws.
There is an incentive program, and there is a lower incentive for other entities. So it's in our best interest to sell to you guys, and it's in order to entice you guys to want to buy our energy. We're working to give you a really good discount on the energy.
Okay. Betsy, I have two other questions.
Sure.
One, and this was a long time ago before any of us, well, maybe Donnie was on the board, but we've gone into a contract of this length. And you had mentioned, Kenny asked about the gray areas, or maybe it was the chairman, I'm not sure. But those where the biggest savings are. But your response to that was, it's not us that.
It's optional.
It's optional, but not for us.
Optional and mutual.
It's mutual. So
we would both-
we can't impose it on you, and you can't impose it on us. It's a mutual extension.
Okay, so, but that would be part of any contract, that it would be a mutual extension, that we would sign, at the beginning or after the 20 years, then
Yes.
discuss it.
Yes.
Because the savings may not be, because it does say savings are estimated, estimates are not
Right.
guaranteed. So after the
Right.
20 years, we may not want to be in it anymore, but the savings could be that much greater than your company thought, and you
Right.
may not want to deal with us because now you're not making any money.
So, I can't predict 20 years in the future, but the program that exists now is going away after May
Okay.
of this year. And so, but all of the projects that have been happening and this one are being grandfathered into that system. And so I suspect that in 20 years, this contract would be very lucrative.
Okay, and thank you. And my second question, and I get it, it's only for, the town buildings. And it's probably a very simple answer, which I think I already know. But how does the citizens of Hanson save money by us doing this?
Well, it would certainly decrease the expenses for the town government.
Okay.
We could put the money into other
But
things.
I knew that was the obvious answer. I just wanted you to say it because it makes more sense coming from you than it would any one of the five of us. But with the electricity bills going down and the savings there, that the citizens of Hanson would save money.
We've
Right.
got,
Yeah, we wouldn't
the
have to-
town has $14,000 more in its pockets
Right.
per year if we enter into this contract. Which we then can do whatever we need with that $14,000.
Betsy, so the program goes away at the end of May, what happens at the end of February?
You got that question?
Oh, at the end, so we are gonna reach mechanical completion sometime in the latter half of March.
Yep.
And mechanical completion is a technical term. It's defined in the contracts that I
go for
have.
that.
And typically, we work to get all of our customers signed on by 1 month prior to mechanical completion.
Gotcha.
And
That's
so it's
what's
sort of
going
an
on.
internal deadline for us to get all of our ducks in a row for our investors and lenders.
Is by the end of February,
Mm-hmm.
got you, okay. And
Is
you-
there a termination cost? If for some, I don't know what reason we would want to terminate, but if we wanted to terminate this?
So the termination provision allows for early termination if construction does not start on time and it's already underway, so that termination is done. And if the project does not get turned on and start delivering your credits to you within 365 days.
Okay.
So it's more based on you're not going to be locked into this contract. If we somehow fail on this project and we can't get it to move forward, you guys are not going to be locked into it
So it's more
anyway.
cause than just, hey, we want
Right.
to terminate the contract?
Right.
Okay.
Okay.
It's all for just town municipal buildings, fire stations, police stations, schools. Okay.
I would
Not
really
Not
not
the
schools.
school.
Not schools?
Yeah, me too.
Not the schools.
No, it's not this.
No, right
the town
now
doesn't
it's
pay
not
the
for the
school.
school, but it could
But
be for
later
the
on.
It
school.
could.
Just-
Yeah,
The
if
district is
they're-
built out differently.
yeah.
Yeah.
So Mike, has legal review this, or we can motion pending
Well,
legals?
yeah, and that's the motion that I would encourage the board to make to
Move forward?
execute the contract contingent upon approval of town council.
What's the date the contract has to be signed? You said Feb,
End of
Yeah, this
February.
one. So we'll
By
just-
end
the
of February.
No, we'll just, so
We'll motion it subject to town council.
town
Yeah,
council
we
review.
have another meeting before the
Yes, that's a good point, before the end of
the
February.
month.
Yeah, but it's-
So can,
It's not, it's like
Do
the
we have
last
time
day.
by the other meeting?
Excuse me?
Do we have time to
I-
vote on this in the next meeting?
My suggestion,
27th,
my
alright.
suggestion to the
It's cutting it
board,
too close.
my suggestion to the board is to make the
But tonight-
motion,
Yes,
make the motion I just mentioned.
yes.
As I was just kind of sidebarring with Jim, these contracts are fairly boilerplate. I do believe the town council will be able to move through this quite quickly.
Yeah.
Okay.
I would be very surprised if he hasn't seen this before. I forget, do you have an agreement, an arrangement with the town of Easton? I thought that you
I
did.
believe we do.
Yeah.
Not on this particular project, but yes, I think we do.
Our town council also represents the town of Easton. So he or somebody in his firm, I'm sure,
But I
are
agree
very
with
familiar
Kenny,
with this.
it's gotta pass the muster, and I think where you were going, Jim Hickey, is that, you weren't suggesting that we kick this can up the road and not vote.
Oh,
You were
no.
saying if he comes back with some kind of concerns, we can address them at the 27th.
27th.
meeting.
Right,
Yeah.
yeah, we
Okay.
I think we should vote tonight.
Yeah,
Based on pending
Yeah.
legal
Yeah.
Yeah.
approval. So
Okay.
Mary, did you get Mike's motion in his verbiage?
Execute contingent upon approval by town council.
So moved.
Second.
okay, there you
Motion has
go.
been made and seconded. Any further questions to Betsy on this? Thank you, Betsy.
No, this is,
So-
this
Sorry
is
for
great.
grilling
Oh,
you on it,
yeah.
but this is new to us.
No, that's fine.
so-
It's a new kind of thing, and I also wanted
This
to.
should be easy
pass
for
out-
you to sign municipalities up, I would think.
Yeah.
Everybody thinks it's too good to be true.
Yeah.
Right.
It's a lot
So
to
we're not the
take
only
in.
ones.
Yeah.
Hey.
It's a lot to take in.
I just wanted to hand out, for all of our customers who are already signed on to the project, we do monthly status reports of the project, and this is the one from January 31st, so I thought I would just hand it out to you guys. So it includes a lot of photographs and how our milestones are tracking against our planned progress for the project.
You can say that.
Mike, I would also like you to kick the tires and check a few references if we can. At the same time that we're having town council,
Sure. I'm actually familiar with this project. We looked at it in the town I was previously in, so I have done a little bit of that sort of groundwork previously, but I'm certainly happy to
Get an
check
independent
in
review.
Yep.
again. That's fine.
okay.
It'd make us all feel better.
I think we
haven't
already
voted yet.
discussed,
You
the
haven't voted yet.
town
No.
of Hanover is also signed on to this contract.
Oh,
They
okay,
have.
no, I didn't hear you say that, that's great.
One more quick.
That's
one
okay,
more-
we'll still
I'm
go
sorry.
with it.
No, that's okay.
One
We
more
won't hold that against you.
quick question. I know of a solar field, and I'll just tell you the town that's in Middleborough that's been there about a year, just over a year, and they're having problems with the field not producing what they originally had anticipated. What would happen in a case like that?
So we have written into the contract an 85% production guarantee. So from what we list as the anticipated production for the site, we promise that we'll deliver 85%, at least 85% of that every year. So
Okay.
over the course of the year, if the system goes down for some portion of time, which does happen from time to time. There's a transformer problem, you know, utilities go out from time to time, and this does too. We have an asset management system that tracks this, and then we have like emergency electricians that can go out and take a look at the solar farm. So typically they're not out for very long, but when if that something like that happened and there was some problem that they were offline for long enough to on any given year produce 85% or less, we would make that up to you. So that's the guarantee that we have in the contract.
Did you build in that 85% when you gave the low estimate of what our savings would be, or?
No, so the low estimate is actually based on the energy costs increasing over year at 0.5 percentage rate.
Okay.
Which is a very low conservative estimate of what electricity
expect it
prices
to go up?
actually do go up at. I checked a 15-year historical average is 1.65% increase year over year, and we on our low estimate we've used 0.5%.
Okay.
On our high estimate we used 1.5. So in both cases we're being relatively conservative, but I know that you know I think
Would
that
rather that than,
yeah people would rather
yeah.
have a conservative
Yeah.
estimate.
That's great, thank you, Betsy.
Um,
All right, so did we?
We have not voted yet.
We moved and seconded
Moved and
it.
seconded,
Yep.
move to the vote.
I think you had a comment.
That's,
Mr. Kevin has a
Oh.
question.
sorry, Mr.
I
Kemet.
don't mean to interrupt, I know I'm coming late, but I'm just wondering, is this a proposed solar site? And I'd like to know
No.
if...
No,
It is
no,
not.
it's not.
No, it's net metering.
It's in Westport, so
In
it's
Westport,
had no
yep.
physical impact on
We're
it.
getting it from a different location, John, so. Okay, let's move to the vote. All those in favor, say aye. Aye. 5-0, thank you very much, Betsy.
Thank you.
Appreciate it. Boy, we're a cautious group, right?
Yeah, a little bit.
Well, I mean, we're taking our responsibilities, you know.
No, no. Well,
Listen, we
it
don't
goes to
need any
it
more
goes to what Jim said, if
investigations.
it sounds, yeah.
It really will be.
So the next item on our agenda is the discussion relative to increasing the membership of the McQuon School Reuse Committee. I think, Laura, are you speaking to that point?
Discussion
Item
relative
4?
to increasing the, so we would like to have probably one more member of that committee, just because we've got some logistical issues with people's availability, the people that have already signed up. So I think maybe we could, put that out there for applications, if people are interested in applying. Basically, we really would like people that are collaborative and, of course, have the best interest of Hanson in mind, and, come without any preconceived notions necessarily, because we're really going to lay everything out on the table and make a recommendation to this board about how we think we should proceed and move forward. So we would welcome anybody that would like to put in an application. And Mary, that's up on the town website, right? They can just use the regular application for
Yes, yep.
joining a committee?
Under volunteer and employment opportunities.
Okay, so that's all I had on that.
So
We
there's
meet
currently
meet
6?
once every other week or so. It's been once a month, but the frequency will pick up, but it is not a lifetime commitment, and there is an end date, because whenever we make that recommendation to the board, that probably will relieve you of your duties on that committee.
How many members do you have now?
Total, 6?
Right now,
6 or 7?
yeah,
6?
six,
So
yeah.
let's make it
6.
7.
So you're looking for one more to make it 7 total.
And not all of those are citizens. We've got people, town hall employees, Mike and Bob Curran, and some people are dealing
So you have
themselves
some
in and
non-voting
out.
members.
So it's, you really learn a lot, and you can really make a difference, because that piece of property has the potential to really be a wonderful thing for Hanson if we utilize it and deal with it the right way, so.
So we have currently
Committee?
3
five
at large.
members, 3 at large and a selectman and a school committee member.
Yep.
So you're looking for a sixth
Yes.
member?
Yep,
I see, and you're right, because you were clever enough to include the minutes from June 27th, Mary, that said, the committee will include a representative from the school committee, selectmen, 1 selectman, 3 citizens at large, and several non-voting members for input, including Ernie.
can we reach out to the school committee, because I'm not sure there's been consistent attendance and participation. So I'm not sure that we actually ever specifically said we need you to designate somebody. I think we might have assumed who would be designated, but
Oh, I
yeah.
have them down as part of a
Oh,
committee member,
okay.
so I thought
All
He
right.
came and said
Yeah,
the
we
school
might
committee,
want to
but I will double
specifically
check
say
on
our
that.
charter requires a school committee member.
Okay.
Did they, yeah, they'd have to vote for it too. I think,
Right,
at the meeting.
and I don't know that we formally made those
Gotcha.
overtures. I think we had the best of intentions, but we just didn't.
Okay. Jim?
I'm sorry, and Laura, just to, kind of, from what you said at the beginning of the meeting, of giving people a rundown of what these committees actually do, you had mentioned that you meet every other week.
Yes, and what we're looking at now is, we're really trying to take a look at which the town has made the decision, the school made the decision, not to, have classes at McQuon any longer for a variety of reasons, which I'm not here to debate or defend, but that is a fact. And so, because it is a piece of property that the town owns, it now falls to us to make a decision about what we're going to do with the property, whether we're going to reuse it, sell it, tear it down, some combination thereof. Those decisions haven't been made, and if you sign up for the McQuon Reuse Committee, you could be on the cutting edge of helping to make those decisions and the recommendations.
And how long do your meetings typically run?
An hour, hour and a half
Oh,
at the
that's not
most.
bad.
Yeah, it's not bad. It's not a
Okay.
lifetime commitment.
No, I've only had a couple, but you never know. They could run longer if you'd like. Jim.
No, no.
Oh, good,
no.
no.
They also, Mary, if I'm not mistaken, you have this information out on our website, is that correct?
Yes, I do.
Thank you very
It should be
much.
under volunteer employment.
Yep.
And each one of those committees will have a link to it, which will show what you have in your packets, the
Yep.
establishment of the committee. But I can add to each of those pages.
Okay, that's great.
So I would entertain a motion to what? Why don't you make the motion?
Okay, sure. I make a motion to add one at-large member to the McQuon School Reuse Committee.
Second.
Okay. Any discussion? Further questions? All those in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Aye, 5-0 on the vote. Increase from 5 to 6 members. With clarification to the school committee. Okay, moving on. We have, next on our agenda is the discussion vote regarding the Indian Head School playground. We have received an email, and by the way, I'm going to, I think it's a good idea to possibly merge item 5 with item 7, which is also the discussion regarding the Hanson School Repair Committee. So relevant to that issue, we have an email from Ruth Whitner that says, due to the age and safety concerns, the Indian Head School playground, it is my recommendation to remove all structures immediately. I had the playground surveyed by Playground Inspections of New England, LLC. The survey came back detailing that 70% of the play structures do not comply with CPSC, ASTM, 148717, various numbers that types of various chapters. During the inspection's evaluation, it was evident that the structures are old and worn, and there are many hazards that will prohibit the structure from being retrofitted. Temporarily, we have placed sawhorses and caution tape in this area until the structure is removed. And Mike, I asked you to follow up with some information on this in terms of whether it would be better for us to propose or to look into whether it would be better to repair or actually replace, and I think you came back with information on that, right?
Yes, the information that I received is that the school, the district had an independent consultant come out and evaluate the playground. And basically, it is not something that is recommended to be moved for a number of reasons. The condition of the playground, of the materials, the units there, is not very good. And basically, the estimate of moving the current units, and current, how would you even say it, playground units. Structures, thank you. Would pretty much be the same cost as installing a brand-new playground. So for those reasons, the school department is making that recommendation.
So Mike, there was talk about, I think they had talked about possibly moving the McQuon playground but that's not gonna happen,
Exactly.
right?
Yes.
So when you talk about moving, is that the item that we're talking about moving? We're not talking about moving anything else, right?
No,
The
no,
ins-
it does not seem to be the proper way to go about it.
Okay.
So
Again,
is
for both reasons. For the reason that the stuff that there's right now is fairly inadequate and potentially a liability issue, and that for pretty much the same cost, we can put in, or the town, the district can put in a brand-new playground.
And what-
So,
I'm
what is that cost? Do we know? And are they planning, I'm sorry, you said, yeah? We do know how much or no?
Yeah, we got it, it was actually part of the, we got it as a breakdown at the town meeting,
Oh,
as other stuff
Okay.
underneath there.
Um,
But for but why don't we, do you remember the numbers, Mike? Was it 90?
Approximately $96,000.
And then there was another 15, I think, for the fence, and,
No, it was 96 inclusive. I believe that the only other not included figure was the
flooring.
flooring, so to speak,
The
which would,
rubberized
which
floor.
would be about, I think, 60.
67,000?
Yeah.
Additional?
On top of the
Well, if we chose to go with that. Or yeah, if we chose to go with that, that would be an
on top
additional
of the
cost.
90?
Yes, that would be a
Now,
cost.
do you have
for
to
the
do
90.
an RFP? I'm sorry.
Yes.
That's okay.
Do you have to do an
Well,
RFP for the price?
Well, the district would. It
district
wouldn't
would.
be us, but.
Yeah, I mean, it's, as far as I'm concerned, I think
Oh,
we
yeah,
need,
yeah.
we don't have a choice, we have to replace that playground. I said, I think we have to replace the playground. We don't have a choice.
Yeah,
Especially where we're moving the Quan to Indian Head.
yeah.
How old is the playground?
I don't know that.
Okay.
So-
And then, the figures were thrown out there that it was really close from repairing to buying brand new.
Replacing, yeah.
But how do we get rid of this one? We gotta pay to have this demoed and then taken away. I can't recognize you, only the chairman can. Stop looking
What-
at me.
yeah, do we know the cost for demolition?
That has not been included, though I don't think that they're very expensive. I
That
don't think it's very
includes the one
expensive.
over to the McQuon School,
Oh, yes,
too?
no, I've got
So
that.
Mike, at the
very
bottom
bottom.
section there, that was presented to us at town meeting, right?
Yes.
And in that, it says $96,000 for the new playground.
Mhm.
But the $15,000 I didn't think was part of it, is it?
No, actually, that figure is not part of it. You're correct.
So then, and then it was the $63,000 for the rubberized floor?
Yeah, 67.3.
And then what was the other two $45,000 amounts? There were two $45,000.
Those amounts do not relate back to the playground.
Okay, they're talking about fixing the parking area, I think.
And from the last conversation I had with them, and I don't want to speak out of turn, I think that they did not believe they still needed that money
Okay.
for the
They should come
parking.
to us with some hard numbers, and we should create an article at
That's
a
right.
town meeting
I agree.
and do it, but they gotta come to us.
Yeah, we can't.
can't
Can't vote on this.
It was important to.
They're not asking us to act on this,
No, they're
right?
not.
This is
No.
like an FYI kind of-
Yeah.
I thought they
Okay.
wanted to take it down, isn't that what the whole point of this was?
Well, it says
They wanna take it
discussion
down
and
as
vote
soon
on the
as soon
agenda.
as possible.
Oh, do
Well,
they
they
want
got
permission
fenced
for us
off
to
right
take it
now.
down? Is that what you think, Mary?
Well, she
No,
said,
my understanding is this conversation centers around whether or not the Board of Selectmen wishes to be the sounding board, that's redundant, the sounding board for this particular article, and in supporting this article, versus the repair committee, which is, basically hasn't been meeting. So is it something that the board wishes to see the repair committee reinvigorate and tackle, or is it something that the Board of Selectmen wishes to take, and a lot of this has to do with timing as well.
Isn't there a third option, which is to have the district own it and move forward with it? They've already identified it and gotten estimates and had the guy come out and inspect it, and I don't understand why all of a sudden the selectmen would step in the shoes when the district has already done all of this.
Well, I think it's because we are potentially in a situation of transition where in the past you had a repair committee that would review all of this information. So I think that the school committee doesn't wish to step too far ahead without touching base with the Board of Selectmen. The way that they would do this in the past, again, they would come before a repair committee The repair committee, for the most part, is kind of defunct right now. So I don't think that for political reasons, I don't think the school committee just wants to go off and just assume in a vacuum they're now going to be the proponents for something that originally they were not, or at least they were in partnership with the town in moving such forward.
Well, that repair committee was set up in 2014, when the super school was voted down by the town, and at the time, Selectman Bruce Young, with the approval of the selectmen, formed this committee. So what did the school committee do before 2014? And also, the name of that committee was the Indian Head and McQuon Priority
Right,
Repair Committee.
yeah.
Part of the problem was, Jim, was that things weren't being done that we felt indeed should have been.
Okay.
For example, the Quan window wasn't being repaired. All right, the thing had leaked for 10 years when we saw a teacher funneling the water into a bucket.
Right.
Because I remember distinctly going to the schools when it was raining, pouring out, seeing the water coming down at certain times when it needed to. We also had that committee made up of people who had various backgrounds of electrical or roofing or what have you, that
Yeah.
could bounce the numbers off of what's being done and challenge some of the things that could be done for us in terms of what needed to be done for priority. So my point to you is, before then, I don't think we were happy with what was going on. That's why, too, that committee was set up.
Okay.
So-
And the committee did great work, too.
They did.
You know,
I can get the committee and we can jump on this. But if it's in disrepair, as it says in these pictures show, why is it still up?
Mike, is this Playground Inspections, was this a separate company? They're not the ones who are
No,
selling?
it's a completely separate
They're
company.
they're a playground,
Yeah, this is an
McQuon
inspection
Playground?
company.
no, it's
It's
Indian.
it's a completely separate consultant
So when,
What
that
about the
only does
McQuon
that.
Playground? Is that gonna stay intact? Are they
No.
using it now?
That's gonna be part of the McQuon building.
So, Selectman Hickey
Currently-
just brought up a good question. Why haven't they torn it down, or do they need our permission to tear it down?
It's currently not being used, it's currently been taped off, it is not in use right
What, the
now.
McQuon
It's
one?
taped off
No,
with
the
saw
Indian-
horses.
No, the Indian-
Or
Yeah.
sawhorse
Hold
off.
on.
Right.
I read to you guys what Ruth is asking us to do. It's my recommendation to remove all structures immediately. Okay, so in my opinion, she's looking for support from this board.
But we
I
don't
think
know
should
how
do
much
that.
that's gonna cost, though.
We should vote on it.
Well, how can we vote if we don't know how much it's
You
gonna
don't know what it's
cost?
gonna cost.
I think, we could take a vote saying, like, we're supportive of that initiative, but we need more information before we can make an
It's
affirmative.
maybe Ernie and his guys, I'm looking at it as a safety issue. You got sawhorses and caution
Yeah.
tape, and you got kids. It's
Sounds like a
not-
nightmare.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay, and how long has it been like that?
When
Well,
did she send the letter? Since the 23rd?
the site visit was November 13th, 2017.
And the letter was dated in January, right?
I had a question in the audience. John, did you have a question still?
Yeah, I just had one quick one. I know you guys were talking about funding this new playground, and I know that the CPC has funded playgrounds, one at the high school. So I'm wondering if, it would be worthy of considering that as a CPC project, or some funding for that.
Yeah, the one up at the high school is not a playground, it is an adult workout area. Let's be clear, because people were thinking that was actually gonna be used for the pre-K guys being moved
Tell
up.
Bob Rogers you call it a
Yeah.
playground.
But it's still in keeping with, because the community will be using it.
Yes,
part of the time.
recreational activity, yeah, it would be, that's a possibility.
How about the time frame?
Well, they couldn't put it in until the next town meeting for funding under CPC.
And that's where the relevance comes in for the school repair committee.
Ernie's requesting it
So what's my point?
They need
My point is that even if we decided tonight, and we're up for discussion on this, to move forward with setting up the school repair committee, I don't think they would be able to, in a timely fashion, get this done for the town meeting in May, an article put together. So we're gonna have to rely on them coming back. But
When do we close the
No, I
warrant?
think we should
The
do.
the warrant, the articles are due to me the 16th of
I
March.
think that
16th of March, so with the 16th of March, we don't have the time, but let's get back to the point of what the costs are for removing this. We don't have any idea what that is that right?
That's correct. No, that information hasn't been provided to us. And in all actuality, the letter that we have in hand is not a request from Ruth. Actually, unless I don't have all the
Oh,
information.
it's to Dear Ruth, it's from Ernie.
Yeah, it's
Yeah.
from
Yeah.
Ernie requesting permission from Ruth. So we're really not being asked.
So this isn't directed to us.
No, it is
No.
This is
not.
just an FYI to us.
That's
But
correct.
okay, so I think there's two pieces. One is, we've got the cost of or at least the estimates and what they gave it out, of what they think it's gonna cost to build it. We don't have the estimate of what it's gonna cost to tear it down. I certainly think between now and the middle of March, we could certainly put a placeholder in for the town warrant to do the cleanup of that, so that we're getting the funding by May to do the cleanup, and then perhaps the second piece would be in October to do the build. Maybe we could do both, I don't know. But, but for sure the cleanup, because that is just a recipe for disaster.
Well, it's my understanding, and I will double check on this, but it's my understanding that the school committee at this point is really only asking, through whatever means makes sense to the board in the end, for the funding to put the new playground in. I believe, and I will double check, but as I thought about this a few minutes just now, I believe that they feel that they can facilitate the removal on their own. I don't think they're looking for funding, they're not looking for approval. I think that they have the means, and I don't think it's gonna cost very much
Right.
to remove it. So what's before this board, or potentially before the repair committee, is whether or not there's support for the $96,000, potentially an extra $15,000 for fencing, and then the last piece would be the $67,000 for the surface.
Well, I mean, look, we're closing McQuon. So what are you gonna do? Have a whole group of young people that have got no playground at Indian
Yeah,
Head?
do it.
That's
Throw-
absurd.
Throwing rocks at each other.
So I think that this board needs to support the playground, but I'm not in favor of discontinuing the repair committee. I think that the repair committee should stay intact, but however, obviously today and recently they haven't met, so we can't hand the playground, there's not enough time for that.
No.
So I think we need to take on the playground, create an article, and get that done for May, but meanwhile, I think that committee should stay intact. I don't
Okay,
think
then
we
let's
should
take it
dissolve
separately. At the beginning, the chairman said, let's take 5 and 7 together. Let's take them separately and handle 5 first, and then go to
Whatever.
7.
I
Just-
agree.
just
So
my-
to
Wait a minute,
Mike's,
hold
to
on.
Mike's point,
When
though,
you say
it's
handle
some-
5 first, what do you mean? Because we
He
don't
means-
have to vote.
No, he's just saying, talk about that, close it out, and then
Let's
move
talk
on
about
to
the
the next.
playground first, and
Yeah.
then we can go to 7.
The playground first is evident, but in all honesty, Jim, in my personal opinion, the Hanson School Repair Committee should have been up and about a long time ago. We should have caught this thing well before this time, and not been at this particular point in time at this, we're talking about $178,472, that's what I calculate. For $96,172 for the playground, $67,300 for the floor, surface, $15,000 for the fencing.
Okay, I mean, in all honesty, I really don't want to kind of get into it, but Jim has been on the board since June, and this clearly didn't just deteriorate between June and November.
Thank you, Laura.
I mean-
We both came on May 22nd,
Yeah.
was when we were voted in. The letter that Ernie got was originally November 13th, when the gentleman came and looked at the playground. So on November 13th,
Right,
this was decided.
right.
And that was before I was appointed as chairman of the Hanson, actually at the time.
My point is that prior to, had the board been established during that time and set up, I would think that they would probably do some sort of a walkthrough to a couple of the buildings and see what's being done, or
Maybe,
what
but
needs
I
to be
don't know
done.
about the playground, Jim. I just don't know if that was something they were looking
I
at.
personally would have looked at it if it was something like that. If you're moving, if you, like you said it best, Laura, if you're, hold on for a second, if you're closing a school
Yeah,
and you're
all right.
moving grades to it, then god damn it, you should have had the playground ready in advance.
All right. I get it.
You know, it's a problem, and now we've got to hurry up and get it done for May, so that hopefully it can get built by July and August, right, for September opening.
But Mike, you're saying that your sense is that the district is just sort of putting us on notice, like they're gonna run with it, but like, hey, do you guys have a problem with us running with it? Because we just kind of don't know what you guys are doing with your priority repair kind of thing.
Well, it's my opinion, and I may not have stated it very clearly, that I don't think given the past history since 14, I guess, there's been a committee that reviews these sorts of things. Now, for whatever reasons, there hasn't been a committee that, for them to present it to, at least of which they're aware. They just don't want to get too far ahead of themselves and in a sense, make assumptions that they're going to run with this sort of thing, and either the Board of Selectmen or potentially the repair committee won't have some sort of input. So they're just kind of covering all their bases, I think,
All
at
right,
this
so
point.
can I-
And the
yeah.
question, I think, is does the Board of Selectmen, given the time constraints, does the Board of Selectmen want to take on the responsibility? Or is there enough time for the repair committee to deal with this? And again, it's
do
a
it.
school committee just trying to be cooperative and not
No,
make
yeah.
certain assumptions.
So can I just make a suggestion? We can't do anything about where we are now. We can just move forward and try to do, we can certainly, lessons learned, make sure we get on with it and, make that a viable committee, et cetera, but we are where we are. And where we are now is we've got a playground that is dangerous and we need to have someplace for little people to play. And we need to do something about it. We've got the school committee who's already looked into the costs, brought in a consultant, they're kind of already running with it. And I think that given the footwork that they've already done, it's pretty likely that if we talk to them, they could put in an article in the May town warrant, and I think we would pretty much, I don't want to speak for everybody.
He's even saying we could do it,
But
Mike's saying.
I think we would support them in doing that.
Absolutely.
And I think it would probably be maybe outside of the budget they presented to us, because it's a
Hanson thing
it's a
anyways.
Hanson kind of capital improvement, if you will, type of thing. But I mean, we gotta have those schools and everything up to snuff for these little guys to get in there in, September.
It is outside that budget.
Yeah.
And
So
the discussions I've had with the town accountant in terms of the means of funding this is we feel that at least at the $96,000, there'll be sufficient money within free cash to place an article on the special town meeting.
Okay,
But it's actually 178, right?
Right.
I mean,
Well,
that's
it's
not-
with the other things added in.
yeah.
If, again, the decision is made by whichever board to support, some of these alternates. But the base price is $96,000.
So can we see, Mike, on the next town meeting, that can we make sure that we get an article in place for May? And
Well,
can
let me just check and see if they have it as part of their capital improvement
Yeah,
plan, because a price like that
Yeah,
should have been
wasn't
on
that
the
what it
capital
was?
improvement. And I haven't been able to look because my computer hasn't been.
No, but we got it.
Probably
right.
wasn't because they didn't know that it was
Right here.
in that poor.
Yeah.
No, Mary,
Condition.
the letter that we got in our mailboxes, this is to Mike McHugh, from Ruth Whitner. She talks about the matrix,
Right,
which is there, and it says replace playground for the 96,172, surface playground for 67, and the fence around the playground for $15,000.
So is that on the capital plan?
That is on the capital
Yeah.
plan, yep. So we have it on the capital plan. I definitely want to make sure that we get a warrant, but Mike, more importantly, we have to make sure that we have enough money of the 178, because
We need hard numbers.
with the closing, of course, of McQuon, we know that although the district might be saving money, those costs of insurance and utilities are gonna be passed on to the town, which may impact whether we can afford $178,000 or not.
can you clarify that point, because I know we've talked about it, but I just want to make sure.
So the district is closing McQuon School, right? You have to heat the building, you can't leave it unheated, right? Or else the pipes will freeze and you'll have worse problems. You also you may have to have some service come in and clean it maybe once a month, as opposed to what they do daily now. But, and then certainly, the building costs, insuring it, could actually go up because it's an empty building.
Right,
So I think the district said, I know the district said they paid $15,000 a month. That was the approximate in the article that they sent to us on what we were saving, if you guys remember at the last Monday meeting, right?
Right.
So that's $15,000 a month. So we have to hurry up and sell McQuon after it shuts down.
Or
if we
do
got-
something
Or
with
do
it.
something with it, or
Yeah.
else it's gonna be the albatross on our neck
Mm-hmm.
for this town. We're gonna be putting money into it, it's gonna be,
But those costs shouldn't affect the playground. The playground, they have to have a playground.
no, but my point is that Mike's gonna have to relook at the budget now, right? And make
Yeah.
sure that he incurs those costs just in case.
Yeah, because we're gonna
absolutely.
have costs that we didn't
Yeah, they're gonna
forecast.
increase.
Yeah, yeah.
Okay, so what I think we're saying here is that I think we're in agreement to move forward with a playground.
So do they have to create the article because it's in the capital improvement from the school, or can we do it?
I'm pretty sure we can
Capital
submit it if they
improvement ought to be
don't.
doing it.
Say that again?
Capital improvement would be submitting some articles of what they recommend for
Okay.
priorities.
So Mike, can we reach out to John?
Yeah, do we have insight? Are we saying
Oh,
John
John
Norton?
Norton.
Yes,
Yeah,
he's still chair, isn't he?
yep,
Yes.
yep.
And then can they get, who would it be the school department or Ernie? Can we get like a couple of numbers or a couple of companies to give us prices on this playground? Is this just one? Where are they getting, where's this number coming from?
Yeah, can
Well,
we have a
what-
little
well, what they'll-
transparency?
Well, what they'll need to do is they'll need to put out, because of the dollar figure, they will have to put it out to RFP.
All right.
So, I mean, that whole process, this is, as we do with a lot of these sorts of articles that are being formulated, when they're expenditures, we go out and get an estimate, and we base, what we need to do on that estimate. Now, if this estimate came in under $50,000, we wouldn't have to go out to RFP.
Okay.
It came in over $50,000, it has to go out. But so, you've got to have a starting point,
Okay.
and that's what they've done. They've gone out and they've got an estimate. But,
So do
based
you
on
use
that.
number in the RFP, the estimate you have, and say, this is what we have allotted for this? No, you just say how much you have.
Yeah, you never put a number in an RFP, you just put in what you're looking for the service, and then they
Okay.
provide you the number.
Right, okay.
So again, this is just to give us an idea of the ballpark of what this is gonna cost.
Right, okay.
They still have to go through the whole procurement process.
But even though you're closing the warrant the middle of March, and I know this isn't a preferred mode, but I just always like to think worst case scenario, we could put a placeholder there.
Already done.
Okay.
I've already put it
And
on.
then, basically push the envelope and whenever they can get those dollar amounts and then we vote and yada yada. Then
Yeah, we should be all right.
Now, my method of operation in terms of town warrants, I put a ton of placeholders on, of anything that I possibly
Yep.
think could come down the pike. And then as we get closer to closing out and signing and posting the warrant, we pull them off if not necessary.
Makes
It-
sense.
It's much
Yeah.
easier to have stuff on the warrant and pull it off than at the last moment start putting things on that haven't been vetted.
So for clarification to folks out there, the letter that I read was to Ruth from Ernie, okay? So we're not having to vote on anything, except for possibly decide tonight whether we want to continue with the repair committee. In addition to the playground, I was reminded by a former selectman that the Indian Head School above the columns, the section there, I don't know what you call it.
Lentil or something?
No, the lentil was behind.
Transom,
Yeah, the transom possibly was in need of being painted, and that was supposed to be part of the agreement with the roof repairs. And I was told that that was still outstanding, I haven't seen it, but that's something also that
Is that the front pillars area?
I think it's above the pillars, where the point
little
part
piece
is.
above.
Wasn't that done with that lifetime paint?
I don't know if it was.
It was, that was repaired several years ago that we funded, and I'll have to go back and check. We had $25,000 or $35,000 to repair
Right.
the columns and to repair that front. And when the whole roof situation was going on, they talked about doing that. They inquired about, was there any guarantee on that? In spite of the name Lifetime
I
Exteriors.
know, but that's what we were told back at the time that was done.
Correct. It hasn't lasted a lifetime, nor has the business, which has filed for bankruptcy, and
That's
has
normal.
several complaints filed against it. I'd given Ernie the information a while back. I had come across the receipts and the information we had on it. He did some research and could not find, he found them, but not in a good way. They are not going to be coming back and repairing it. So,
So it was done, it just wasn't done properly.
correct.
And
So
now
he-
we've got virtually no recourse because they're bankrupt.
Right.
Okay.
So, but Ernie had inquired about it a while ago. I was able to find the information, which was packed
So
up.
that wasn't part of
packed
the
up in
roof
the attic.
the roof project?
No.
Okay.
No, they were hoping they could probably get it done, but they wanted to, I think they may have had enough money to do it at the time. I'm not sure that money still exists to get that repaired, but Ernie wants to do something with it. And
Well, they did
wants some
come
input
back
from the
once
town.
and repaired the columns and also repainted a lot of the stuff.
Correct.
Right,
Yeah.
but that's something that we would want the school repair committee to follow up with. Those are the type of items. Another one was items carried over from previous meetings of the school repair, well, whatever their name was beforehand, okay? But they had items that worked to be completed, was the Hanson Middle School water heater. I believe that was $30,000. We just want to make sure that that was followed up on. Indian head paint removal. Committee is aware that this is not lead paint removal, but rather a study to be conducted. There was a study for $15,000 that was in the works to be discussed. My point is that, in my personal opinion, and this is just me, is that we need this committee, a school repair committee, to pursue, obviously, they don't have to do McQuan anymore, but Indian Head and the middle school, it should include the middle school, because I don't believe the last committee included the middle school.
No, it didn't.
And they should include it. Maybe do a once-a-month walkthrough or something like that to that effect, and just take a look at what needs to be done versus what's on the matrix plan. Making sure that things are in alignment, making sure that things that may need to be repaired that aren't here should get here, right?
I'm fine with that. I personally would prefer a much more direct relationship with the school committee, and with Ernie and, the school district, but, I would defer to you guys. I don't have a particularly strong opinion one way or the other.
Well, the point is that if we had a repair committee, they'd be the ones who would be gathering this information, collecting this information and bringing it to us as well. Now, certainly we can, put more work on Ernie for it too, right? But we need somebody, what you just said, is checking, making sure that we have enough numbers. on
Well, what would the role, like, Mike, would you see yourself having a role in that? Would you see the future facilities director having a role in that? I'm
No.
trying to wrap my mind around, are you saying no?
I'm saying no.
Oh,
In terms of the facilities manager, my interpretation of the job description was the facilities manager was going to deal with town facilities. We have a facilities manager, it's Ernie who deals with the schools. Unless I'm misinterpreting something, and I actually, as recently as a couple hours ago, I just to double check, I looked at how the facilities manager job description was written up, and there was no mention of any of the school facilities. I think for, again, the reason that they've got a facilities manager, attorney.
yeah, to be clear, I'm sorry, I should have clarified what I meant. I don't see this person stepping into Ernie's shoes. I saw them as being the point person that Ernie would work with, who would then work with us, and they would help identify what the priorities were, because they'd know holistically all the other stuff that we're dealing with in terms
Are you
of
talking about the
buildings.
facilities manager?
Well, I think that's a discussion we could
Yeah.
have, but, again, as it's spelt out right now, that's not within.
See, I
The
thought,
duties.
my vision was the facilities manager was gonna come on, start with Camp Kawani,
Yes,
start with just
yeah.
a few
Yes.
pieces.
Yeah.
And then we were gonna see how it works, and then eventually maybe go full-time with that position and have him oversee all the town
That's what I
facilities.
thought.
Well,
But not initially, I didn't think he
That's
was
what I
gonna
thought.
come in and start going to schools and.
No.
I thought Camp Kawani was gonna be kind of its priority, is my understanding.
My understanding of the discussion was, and it's pretty much what you've just said, Kenny, is that when that person or that firm is brought in to do the facilities management, the priority will be some of the things that have been identified up at the camp. Once those are well taken care of, then that person or let's just say that person would then look at town facilities, the town hall, the fire department, so on and so forth. There was never, to the best of my recollection, any discussion about that person being in charge of looking at the schools. And the discussion was, I believe at that point, it is part-time right now, that if it warranted, at some future date, we would potentially look at making it a full-time position.
Yeah,
But again,
okay.
that full-time position would only be looking at the facilities that we oversee, because we
Still not
obviously,
schools, okay.
although technically we own those schools and they are leased out,
But I
you know, the
think
20 years
Ernie
leases,
could
we,
still be
Town
part
owns
of
yeah, but we do not get involved in that.
I think he has to be, right?
You know,
I don't think.
and I would think he
yeah.
probably was involved with the priority, right,
He
Jim?
could be.
Can I just comment about the priority repair committee? I'm just looking at some old minutes, like I'm not doing my minutes right now. And back on the 16th of May, which would have been Mr. Young's last meeting with the board before the election, he had, suggested that the committee, that we vote to reestablish the committee as a one-year committee. And it has vacancies, and noted that, one member was from the school committee, and there are currently 3. He also suggested adding the middle school and changing the name of the committee, which went from the Indian Head McQuon Priority Repair Committee to the School Repair Committee,
Okay.
is what we had ended up changing it to. So it was now going to include the middle school and just strictly the schools.
And he only wanted to keep it for another year?
No, it will be a yearly committee, so that each year it's going to be everybody will
It's
appointed
only
on an
for
annual
1 year.
basis instead
Okay.
of, just staggered or however.
And I
we had
agree
it.
with the middle school. I'm on this council at the middle school. We meet every 3 months, and the middle school has a few issues that have to be addressed over there. With Bill Tranter, the
Principal.
principal over there.
I've got a job description of the facilities manager, and it doesn't say anything about the schools. It does say town-owned buildings, but maybe that's where it's misleading. Okay, it says the primary function of the position is to direct all aspects of building facilities operations in the town of Hanson, including maintenance, repairs, and renovations by town employees and contractors, assesses the quality of work performed, and supervise the completion of work through review of reports, frequent site inspections, and conferences with supervisors and department heads, as well as perform skilled and semi-skilled maintenance tasks and repair, maintenance, and upkeep of town facilities, including carpentry, mechanical, custodial, and basic non-licensed electrical, plumbing, HVAC work in accordance with OSHA safety regulations. Town policies and procedures observing all safety regulations, ensuring all quality standards are met, and a safe and courteous professional behavior is observed in all situations. So that's what the job description is for that facilities manager.
But I guess going to Laura's point, I don't necessarily see it, it's obviously not in the job description, but I don't necessarily see it as something we may not want to look at in the future, because
No,
when we bring this person on, and I'm not talking about doing schools, when we bring this person on, that person will speak the language that Ernie speaks.
That's what I'm saying,
Yeah.
like, I feel like there's gonna be all kinds of redundancies there, because Ernie's gonna be doing his job, and I'm certainly not suggesting we're taking anything off of Ernie's plate, because that's what we paid the district for, and that's what they need to do. But Ernie's gonna right now, if we have the priority repair committee, they'd be identifying things or whatever. I think if we get the facilities director in, we would have some kind of a methodology for Bob Curran to be looking at the buildings and telling our facilities director and Ernie what they think needs to be done. And just, I see it as like a collaborative relationship between the two of them. I don't think you can completely divorce our guy and say he's gonna have nothing to do with the schools, he's never gonna talk to Ernie, he's only gonna do everything but the school, but the schools. That doesn't make sense to me, because there's efficiencies to be gained when you're pooling work that needs to be done and you're talking to one another. And it may be that, like, we've got a roof project and the schools do too, and guess what? We can both save money. So we've got to have like some bridge there.
And again, I'm not suggesting that may not make sense as we move forward. The only point that I wanted to make sure that the board was in agreement with is that the facilities manager, the facilities director will not be responsible for the school
No.
buildings.
No.
To your point, I think, again, as we go forward with the position, does it make sense for those two individuals to be talking? Most certainly. And, at a minimum, that person could then distill the information in a manner that we could understand, whether it be a repair committee or it be the Board of Selectmen, and that person could report out to us.
When I found out about the Indian Head, when I found out about the playground, I found out through a mother on the FinCom. That's how I found out about it.
I found out from FinCom.
FinCom,
Yeah.
okay.
Yeah.
So I understand what you're saying, and that's all wonderful and good. I get it, okay? You know, in the future, it can work out this way. But in the immediate need, and by the way, if we have an absent facilities manager, for example, if we have, maybe we can't fill it for 6, 8, 9 months, right? Who's gonna fill in and report the things that may need to be done? The repair committee, I would think. Okay. So my point is that, yes, I agree with all those things could happen and might happen, but the need for a facility, for a Hanson School Repair Committee is needed so that we don't have to find out through FinCom's lady and find out, people off the street, what's going on with the schools. Or I don't have to find out from a former selectman that this should have been painted.
Which I'm fine with the repair committee, but it does not address the fundamental underlying issue, which is we need a better line of communication with the school committee in the district.
Right.
You know, like it's slapping a Band-Aid on it, honestly, it
But
really
they used
is.
to invite, when I went to those meetings, Laura, I went to many of them. I'm almost all of them except for maybe 2. And I can tell you that there were times when they had Ernie there with Ruth and Christine and talked about what was needed. So the community, the ability was there.
Yeah.
And also what was good to have that was that you had parents who might be concerned about their schools and the direction of how they're being maintained, to participate in that, right? They don't have that now. I mean, they could certainly come to our meeting and tell us, but with this board, they could put that to them.
Have we, I have no idea what the school district's process is for determining what they need to do work on. I would imagine Ernie inspects things and the principals tell him. I'm just, you know, I don't know, you know.
I understand, but my point is just that, it's, you know, if it becomes redundant afterwards, but we're all here and you've heard, I know for a fact that I saw good things come out of that committee. I know,
I did too.
you saw things too. I'm not certain if anybody else was here or went to a number of those meetings, but I saw a lot of good things come out of it. I saw more positive than certainly anything negative
Stuff was
or
done quick
redundant.
too. It wasn't, you know, nobody sat on it. It was moved through pretty quick.
Yep, and I also know, Jim, it was mentioned before that Mike Jones and Chris Howard were former members of that committee.
Yeah.
And now they're on the school committee, so hopefully that addresses some of the communication thing that you're talking about as well.
So you're gonna need to, I don't know that you've got a, I mean, you've got a committee in name only if we vote to have that, but I don't know how many members you'd
Just gonna
have.
have to
We'll
reach
maybe
out
have
to
to
'em and,
reestablish it.
and set a
Right now,
meeting
I would
and-
say the only active members, and I'm not an active member, but Mr. Harvey seems to be an active member, so I would say it was him and I.
Mr. Garvey?
And- Yeah,
Yeah.
and I will be here tomorrow.
I'll give you a list of how it was appointed.
And I'd like all the minutes of all the meetings.
I think we should establish the new committee.
At least for the
name.
Well,
last
see,
year,
what-
so.
what
Talk
we-
to the existing members first and see
So-
where they stand.
Well, yeah,
Before you start adding
I don't
people.
think there are any other.
Hold on a
Howard and
second.
Jones are out.
Yeah.
If Bob Hayes is staying on.
Some of
Can't
the,
have 3.
Yeah,
Well, it doesn't.
hold on,
it-
I remember some of the members. You had Paul Andrak, you had Mariah McClellan, Brian Campbell had stepped down, you had, Bob Hayes was part of it, so, and of course, Chris and Mike, right?
Mariah, I think, stepped down too.
Mariah may have stepped down
Yep.
too, and that's fine. So I also know, and here, I've heard rumors, Mike, if I'm not mistaken, that there's an active group of people out there who are interested in making sure that the playground moves forward. So maybe you can get some more members from those folks too.
Cool.
Yeah, that is
And why
correct.
can't, Howard and the other one, how come they can't be on it anymore?
Well,
When it was established.
When it was established, it said one member from the school committee. So some
Bob
of these
Hayes was
members are actually on the school committee, but they're also residents of the town, and they had good input on it. So just, they could be citizens at large if,
That's
if
not a big deal.
they're willing to
Because that was
serve.
just how
There's no
this
conflict.
board, no, there's no, that's just how this board structured it,
Okay.
just to mix it up.
Yeah,
There's
we-
no,
we-
no
they-
conflict if
The
they're
board
willing to.
determined what the makeup of the committee
Right.
was gonna be. So if you wanted to, you could say, well, there could be 2 members of the,
Right.
school committee
I
on
don't see
there.
anything wrong with
Yeah, it's an
that.
ad hoc board created
Yeah.
by the Board of
It may
Selectmen.
also
And I
be
think
a
it would be
matter of their
beneficial
availability.
having those guys
though.
on there where they are on the
They
school
may
committee.
not have the time to do both, but
So we could put the word out there on getting additional members in there. I'm hoping that we have some parents out there who would be willing to step up. Certainly, if you've got some mechanical or, repair experience, electrical or what have you, you'd be a valued member on that board. They don't meet too frequently. I think they met when certain things came up.
Well, you
on
just
meeting.
said once a month.
They could meet once a month, you could set it, they also,
Well-
there were times, Jim, I know, when we had to meet an emergency meeting on a Saturday morning at 10 AM for some reason, I forget it was, something needed to be
The
funded.
roof was leaking, I think.
Something needed to be
Yeah.
funded immediately, so my point is that, you know, you could set a time once a month, but you certainly could set something up as it comes up too,
All right.
all right?
Okay, the
Because
last, excuse me,
Well-
the last list of members that I have, and
It's been a while, right?
I can't tell, but it was Gary Bannock,
Gary Bannock, I apologize.
Bill Gavi, Bob Hayes, Jim Hickey, Christopher Howard, Mike Jones, and John Wright. And I have all their email addresses, and I can send
Okay.
those to you.
I'll
Let's say you reach out to all the existing members first,
Yeah,
and then
see who
we'll
shows
fill
up if they
in
want to do it.
whoever doesn't want, and go from there.
Yeah.
It's
Well,
a
the
start.
only reason I bring it up, Mr. Chairman, is you said that, meet once a month and walk through the schools.
No, you could certainly change how it's to be done, right? I would recommend walking through the school, that way you get to see firsthand what's in need and what isn't.
Initially.
I thought that they, again, I was just on the outside, but I thought that what they did was they started each school year off by doing a thorough walk around of all the schools, noting things, maybe talking to Ernie and Bob to kind of put together their list, and then I'm sure periodically, but I don't think each and every meeting they did walkthroughs.
But
Yeah.
I know for a fact that Ernie held like
Yeah.
field trips.
Yes.
I know he did at the Indian Head, and I know he did at McQuon.
Yep.
And also at the middle school, when we had, when there was a leak and there was mold behind the walls and stuff. John, do you remember something of that nature? No, I don't know if you remember. But the middle school had
Yes.
issues.
Wasn't that the
with
toilet
with
situation?
Either
They-
the toilet situation or
Yeah.
the drain backed up
Yeah.
or something, yeah. So,
But I think we beat this pretty good.
Yeah.
so I would entertain a motion to
To
continue
us-
the Hanson.
Well, to rename,
No, it's already been
Already
renamed.
Hanson
We
School Repair Committee.
Is it, so what do
did
we?
that back in May.
all right, so we really don't need a
You
motion.
don't need to motion.
Yeah, we're already
The
in.
committees exists,
So we need
just a
to,
matter.
all right, okay. Okay, so hopefully, we can get something started with that, Jim. And
Okay.
with the people that you've got out there. I know, there's some interested mothers and parents out there too.
Please come.
Okay, next we have on our agenda is item 6, is the Calvary Baptist Church. This is a reduction in fee for Camp Kawani. You see in item 6 on your iPads.
Yep. Waiver reduction request for $360 resident fee.
Yeah, let me just come-
Calvary Baptist Church, $1,000 security deposit, same as last year's rate.
Yep, so it's a, obviously they're not 501c3, so the waiver amount is, what'd you say, $360, Kenny? right?
Yes,
Yeah,
yep.
they're not well, they may be, I don't know what the right nonprofit status is for a church, but they may be something similar to 501c3. But what I think is important to note is this particular service is open to the community. It's not just for their church members.
Right.
Right.
So I think that's, to me, that would make a difference between maybe something that
Yeah.
would be closed off and only open
I
to.
agree, and also
you
the tree lighting, they really put a lot towards that.
But this is, from my understanding, because I talked to him about this last year at Clean Up Green Up, and he told me that it's open to all community, the whole community, any faith. It's just a really good community coming together, up at Camp Kawani, and they just want to make it welcoming.
So this is an Easter luncheon, right?
Yeah, yeah.
Community Easter Service Luncheon. It will be held on April 1st, 2018, from 9 AM to 1 PM.
I'd like to make a motion to approve the community Easter service luncheon on April 1st, 2018, from 9 AM to 1 PM.
Second.
Motion's been made and seconded. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
5-0 on this one, Mary. Next, we have the Town Administrator's Report, Mr. Mike McHugh.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Few items. I want to make the board aware, and I've alluded to it the last couple of meetings, that we have finally been able to get out the package of potential tax title auction properties. As I mentioned, we're trying to do something in the late spring. The departments have all been sent a copy. The departments and the appropriate boards and commissions, they have 45 days to make a recommendation. And,
That's
with-
the next batch, Mike?
Yes.
Oh, good,
Yeah,
good.
yeah. And so, hopefully, let's see, 45 days from the end of last week. So in a month and a half, hopefully I'll be able to come before the board and get a final blessing, submit the input from the various boards, and move forward on a final group of properties that we can move forward for our second auction.
So what's your ETA on that, like, give or take, what date are you thinking?
I'm hopeful that maybe late spring, early summer, because once we get that information and the board gives their blessing on the properties we want to move forward, then, of course, the attorney needs to get involved and do whatever title searches, and that can be lengthy. Although it was particularly lengthy with the first sale that we did because the attorney had run into some personal issues and wasn't able to do some things for a course of a couple of months or so. So I think, barring something like that, it should move along quicker.
And would we use the same company that we used before for the,
For the actual auction
Yeah.
itself, yeah, it would depend on the recommendation of the attorney. We acted upon the recommendation of the attorney in retaining that particular group. And at the point where we're ready to move forward, I would go back to her. And if she was satisfied with that particular company's performance and recommended that we retain them again, we would. If she has a change of heart and wants to go in another direction, we'll pretty much adhere to what her recommendation is in terms of
and
the
with this
auctioneer.
grouping, will this bring us down, pretty much, that will clear the docket for us? I mean, obviously, there'll be
No.
ones that come up. How many more do we have?
I can't say for sure, but there's a particular stipulation in the law that requires, there's a time frame in which the towns must move on properties of low value. So these actually, to a certain degree, got pushed a little further up the rung than maybe we would have originally moved on them. So I believe that there still is a decent handful of properties that we need to move on that will not be in this.
Okay, great, thank you.
I am more or less comfortable at this point in moving forward on the engineering RFP. Since I last spoke with the board, I believe that I had said I had only had 2 responses. I now have 5, which I think is a decent amount to work with. So I'm going to go through. I received the last one the end of last week. I'll go through and I'll review those and I'll make a recommendation to the board. If not at the next coming meeting, the meeting after that.
Excellent.
I went to an economic development meeting at OCPC yesterday. I wanted to put out there the fact that we were trying to reestablish our own economic development committee and appealed to the group there for their assistance in giving us guidance as to how to set the committee up, what the goals should be. Basically, and I have a pretty good idea of how to move forward on something like that, but I like to bring in people who basically do that for a living. So they have agreed to come before the board, if not at the next meeting, the meeting after that. It's going to be Pat, who is the president of OCPC, Bruce Hughes, who is more or less the economic development person in that organization, and Chris Cooney, who is the president of the Area Chamber of Commerce. They've all agreed to come and assist us in any way possible to try to get that moving forward. So I wanted to mention that. I thought it was a very productive meeting that I had with them yesterday. Actually, today, and I don't want to go into the particulars just yet, but I wanted to let the board be aware of the fact that we did, the 2 chiefs and I did meet with representatives of State 911 in Middleborough late this morning. The process is such that obviously the 2 chiefs and myself have not been involved in such a process in the past. So we came to find that it's a bit more of a negotiation with the state in terms of what they're going to be willing to give to us, not only in the one-time incentives of perhaps doing a fiber loop around basically around the pond from the police station back up to the fire station.
Infrastructure.
Back down. Or some things that both the chiefs may want. But we need to come before them and price out what we want and then see if they're willing to match it or get to it. We were generally under the impression that we would sit and they would say, well, we're willing to give you $150,000, and that's not the way it works. So there's going to need to be another meeting or two.
So are we gonna kind of try to talk to other towns and see if we can get inside information about what they've negotiated?
We're fortunate because Duxbury is the lead community in this particular potential, well, not potential exists right now, but the potential of us joining it. They already run a regional dispatch, and they've been through the process, not only on their own, but with a couple other communities, Rochester, Plimpton, Halifax. So, and they were at the meeting. They're being extremely helpful to us for obvious reasons, because they'd like us to join, but they're good neighbors as well. So, but the second part to this, aside from the one-time gifts, is a commitment from State 911 to also supplement the cost going forward for the yearly cost that we would have to be paying Duxbury, and what sort of ramifications we may see back in the town of Hanson to make that go forward. So we gave them what we thought was a pretty good figure. We're going to have a little bit more back and forth on that. But so I just want to let the board know there's a few more steps to this than I think we anticipated.
So is it we make an offer, they counter offer kind of thing?
In a sense,
Okay,
yeah.
all right.
In a sense.
I just want to make sure we're not dead in the water. if
No,
we
no, no,
ask for
no,
something.
no, not by any stretch of the
Okay.
imagination. And basically, the state agreed that that's the way that it works, you know.
Okay.
And our next internal step is the chiefs and I are going to meet within the next couple of days and put together, you know, our wish list, so to speak, and what those costs would be, and then we'll
You
go
guys are the
back.
ones that know what it costs.
Yeah, yeah, especially the chiefs. And then go back to the state and say, you know, are you willing to do this, that, and the other thing? And maybe there's a little horse trading, I'm not sure, but,
Shoot high.
yeah, well, actually, that was the recommendation. Let's see. That's pretty much what I have in terms of my report. I have some things that I'd like to touch upon when we go through the committee reports to augment some of those.
What about the recreation director position?
The Recreation Commission last night gave 3 names to the overall commission, and they're going to bring those people in on Thursday to speak before the commission, and I'll get a recommendation. Although technically it's my recommendation, like we've said at one of the meetings previously, I want to do it in cooperation with not only this board, but any board we'd be hiring a person to support. So they're going to speak, obviously I've already spoken to them, they're going to speak to the 3 candidates Thursday night. They'll get back to me with their thoughts, and you know, we'll formulate you know, the one person. Hopefully we'll come to an agreement on one person. I'll make my formal recommendation to that board, and then that board will
And
act
that's
on
an
that.
open meeting again.
Oh, yeah, yeah, that's an open, at
People
this
that are
point,
interested
these are
in-
open
yep.
meetings,
Okay.
yeah.
So Mike, the
Actually, you took away
facilities,
one of the things I was gonna say,
and
so.
the facilities director too?
Yeah, the facilities director, we are actually, I received, not, again, I don't want to get too much into the particulars, but I think I had mentioned to the board that I was waiting upon a proposal from a vendor, from a contractor, which I received at the end of last week, which looked very interesting. However, like I said, we're still going to talk to a couple of individuals that are interested in the position, and we're hopeful to get them in before the end of this week, at which time I can do the apples-to-apples sort of comparisons, and I think we're going to be able to move rather quickly on that. Hopefully, I'll have a recommendation at the next meeting in 2 weeks.
The,
And that was another one of my updates down here, but
Mike, what about the RFP services stuff? I know that's low fruit, but we have it on our list to do, right?
which one
The
is this?
RFP for legal and engineering?
Yeah, well, as I just mentioned,
You already spoke to engineering on that?
yeah, the engineering, I just mentioned the engineering.
For the RFP though?
Yeah, well, it was an RFP.
Okay, cool.
So
And what about
I,
legal? I'm sorry.
well, as I had mentioned to the board, I'm doing it one step at a time. I want to get through the engineering, which I think that we're going to be pretty close now that I have the 5 people, or the 5 companies, I should say. So I think I have a reasonable pool from which to draw and which to make a decision. And once that takes place, then we'll move on to, you know, actually the 2 legal services that we use.
We have it on our radar on the social media policy, right, Mike?
Mhm.
Make sure that it reviews with Leo and we
Yep.
get that implemented to all town employees.
Yep.
And last I had on my list was the PCH antenna. We have that scheduled to get removed? I thought we were talking last.
Well, the problem was that they ran into some issues with getting to the antenna because of, first of the snows,
Yep.
and then of the frosts and the melting and whatnot. They are going to, the thought process had been at one point that we could just drop the antenna.
Yeah.
However, we're back to believing that we're going to have to bring, for safety purposes, a crane in there, and obviously a heavy piece of equipment in that sort of, on that sort of soil, whether it's, we're trying to get through the snow, or then it's defrosting, or it's frosting up. It just hasn't been conducive to bring that heavy piece of equipment in. And as it so happens, I had a conversation just this afternoon, or this morning, about that particular issue.
Mike, the last I have on my list is cell tower. Are we doing, that's on our list, cell phone tower?
Yep, what I have been doing, Mr. Chairman, is trying to get up to speed, especially Laurie Muncie's been very helpful, get up to speed on what we had done in the past, or what the town had done in the past, so we're not reinventing the wheel. And the person that I think I may have mentioned that has, or the company that has mentioned some interest in coming forward, helping us out with an RFP, wants that sort of information. They want that background information, so that any sort of advice they give to us doesn't run contradictory to, or we don't run into the same problems that what we obviously ran into in the last several years, so.
Water tower, that's the best place for a cell phone to. Just don't tell Dawn.
No, I don't think so.
All right, Mike.
CPA funds.
Did anybody else have any, Mike, thank you for your
Funds
update.
on the county.
I know I hit you with some stuff, Mike, that we hadn't talked about, so I appreciate the
No, that's fine.
openness on this. Moving on to item 9 on our, Mike, you are done, right?
But yeah, like I said, there's some things I want to touch upon when you go through the committee reports.
Okay.
Yes.
What we have is item 9, which is a one-day liquor license approval. I would entertain a motion to accept the Hanson Business Network. We read about this in the announcements, by the way, earlier. Hanson Business Network, Saturday, March 17th, from 6 to 10 p.m. fundraiser
So moved.
at Camp Kiwanis.
Second.
Discussion? All those in favor say aye. Aye.
I'm recusing myself.
Recuse,
Oh, yeah.
so one abstention.
I got-
4-0-1.
I did get my email today though, Laura.
Laura, are you gonna have stout or Guinness?
I don't know, I think they had Guinness last year.
Hopefully, huh?
Yep.
The next item we have on our agenda is minutes. We have 2 items. One is January 9th, 2018. The other one is January 30th, 2018. You should have those as item 10 and 11. Hopefully you've had time to review them.
I move to accept the minutes of January 9th,
Want to do them both?
2018. Oh, I don't know, I thought we had to do them individually.
No, you can do
Yep,
them
you
both.
do
No, if
both.
everybody was here for both of
All
them,
right,
we
fine,
should.
then I
can do
moved to approve the minutes of January 9th and the minutes of January 30th,
Second.
2018.
Motion has been made and seconded. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
5-0 on this.
Bob was there.
Mike, one of your other items too is we had a successful town meeting in which the town voted to accept the money to be transferred for the, to be supplied to the school district, to transfer McQuon District, to close the McQuon school. So that was a big kudos.
Great
to you,
turnout
Mary, and
too.
that- Yeah, you, Mary, and the
It
group.
was a surprising turnout.
Committee reports, the 200th anniversary committee, Laura.
No update since we last met, because we only meet once a month. But I did just want to remind, Mike, it seemed to me like when I got to this part of the committee reports, you might have had to step out to go to another meeting.
Oh, yeah, I went to the
Okay.
FinCom meeting.
But we had discussed having Marcus Lynn come, so he could give the full committee an update on what's going on with the 200th anniversary committee.
Sure, we'll put that in on the next agenda, certainly.
Actually, I talked to Jim about this.
Oh.
We've got a busy meeting at the next one, so if it's your meeting next
Yeah,
week,
it's-
if you're gonna ask him if he's available the 3rd.
We're not doing this stuff till 2020, so we
No.
can certainly wait another, 2
Right.
meetings or whatever, yeah.
Right,
Yeah.
but if, the 2 March meetings, whatever, he's available,
Yeah.
if you wouldn't mind asking him, I'll
Okay.
send him an email as well.
I think we've got 2 hearings or 3? 2 hearings?
We've got 3 poll hearings
polls.
and a used car license, and I think somebody else, Recreation is gonna come in to give a review on
Update
the
on
facilities
facilities.
assessment they had done.
Yeah, Marcus
So-
can certainly wait. I just, at some point in the future,
Yeah.
I thought it would be good if everybody
Sure.
could hear.
So, thank you very much. Next, we have the Mont Ponce Pond Committee. Don Howard.
They're gonna treat West Palm Ponce Pond, I assume in May, because Brockton will stop taking the water then. And they'll start doing the testing for the cyanobacteria also.
In May.
Well, they've got the beaches for the swimming
Sure.
and so forth, if they wanna.
They start testing in May, or is it April? Do you remember?
I assume they probably will.
Okay. Next.
And Charlie will see Mike on the money aspect when they treat the pond, so.
Charlie from
So the
Halifax?
town of Hanson pays a portion of that.
Charlie from Halifax, right?
Well, Halifax and Hanson pay for water
Yeah,
to be treated for Brockton,
okay.
and Brockton doesn't pay anything. It makes sense.
To somebody.
Okay.
What, are you being controversial over there?
Next, we have the final Plymouth County Hospital Reuse Committee.
Mike, we need to get another meeting on the books. We did make the plead for another, person to join.
Is this the final Plymouth County?
Oh, sorry.
That would be
I
Don.
just,
It was
You know,
triggered
I'm
reuse.
so
That
hot-
one,
I'm
you
so
want
hot
that
and
too? I
delirious
was
that I'm like,
I thought,
mentally, I'm just.
I thought maybe Laura started a coup and took over. I don't know.
I did.
All right. She
That's
took
where
over
we
the
are
final
with
Plymouth County. Donnie,
We haven't really had a meeting.
okay.
I can bring a quick update on that, though, aside from the never-ending saga of the antenna. We have reached out to the Conway School just to make sure that we're still, in line with
Well,
their thought process. And basically, within the next few weeks, they're going to start setting up meeting dates. I figure probably by March, they'll reach out to us to set something up that probably will be middle of April, in which they'll assign students to come out and work with us, and we'll start setting the process up. So I just want to make sure the board was aware that, we continue to, even though it's been out for a little while, it was always anticipated they wouldn't be able to do it till the spring. So we have more of an idea of when in the spring that would be. Another thing that I found interesting, and I'm not sure if Dawn or Phil would want to go to it, but they said that it is a requirement that someone attend a student project presentation on the 25th of May out in East Hampton. So we'll have to have a conversation about,
I can't drive.
I'm seeing the nod over here, so,
Michael,
I
you-
emailed them today that I would plan to do that.
okay, well, there you go.
What time is it about, do you know?
I don't know, but I think it might be an all-day, close to an all-day event as part of their academic work, this is a part of. It's sort of like a final exam on the project. They make presentations of what their project, how it came out. And the sponsors of the projects, it's good form to be there. It helps them academically as well as helps us to see what kind of a ribbon they put on it. And it actually should be a fairly delightful experience.
May 25th, is it?
Yeah, so this is Friday before the long weekend, so we'll
Yeah.
see. But, yeah.
Possibly, elections will be after then too, so we'll see how that goes.
Elections is Saturday before that.
Mhm. We have, next, the McQuon School Reuse Committee.
I think I already covered that. And the last
So
item.
we want another meeting on the list.
Yeah.
you
Yeah,
said.
and actually,
Yep.
that was one of the other things I wanted to bring the board up to date on, and it just happened today, that a gentleman had come in from Mass Housing, and we had a very good conversation regarding the potential use of McQuon as housing. And what he has agreed to do is, within the next couple of days or so, he is going to have somebody from his organization contact me, and this person will go through the school and do an assessment of the school as to whether or not it is viable for potential housing, and they'll be quite blunt whether it is or it isn't. So, obviously, we've been talking about that as a potential reuse of that facility, and now, free of charge, we'll have a professional go through and that's
great.
what he
Yeah,
does.
I think that's awesome. I'm really glad to hear that. And so that will take care of keeping that envelope and using it as housing, but it doesn't preclude that site as being used for, say, senior housing, if you know, if they say, hey, look, this building, you know, it's gonna cost you more to rehab this and make it into housing than it would to tear down and make housing. But that would be good insight for us to have.
Well,
Could they use it like for assisted living?
Well, the thought process is, in terms of, and this isn't so much an assessment as to whether or not we would sell it commercially as housing. This would be specifically whether or not it could be rehabbed as affordable housing, as senior housing.
Yes.
Assisted living.
Okay.
And as far as the cost as such, and again, this is a conversation I had with him this afternoon, it would not be something that the town of Hanson would foot the bill on. It would be something that, if it was viable, then either this organization or another organization would then either fund it or seek the funds. And then we would basically give it over to the Housing Authority. And actually, I'm talking with Tom Thibodeau tomorrow morning, first thing tomorrow morning. I've been trying to touch base with him. We've been having some back and forths. He's coming in. He's got to be in Hanson anyway. So, you know, this will augment the conversation I had this afternoon.
That's great. I just don't want the housing authority to think we're going AWOL on them and having, you know, conversations. I want them to be in the loop.
Oh, very much
Yeah,
so. Yeah, and like I said, Tom and I we've been playing phone tag for about a week and a half, 2 weeks now. So, but he's aware of, you know, our overtures to his organization, if it makes sense to all parties involved.
That's great, Mike. I'm really glad to hear that. Thank you.
John?
Phil, did you want to have anything to say on that we did?
About,
That meeting we had?
Which meeting?
Well, it wasn't a,
must be quite a while ago.
just a couple weeks ago. What, that,
We have basically had one organized meeting this year on the Plymouth County Hospital.
I know.
And it's, the topics we discussed pretty much were just as touched on. You know, we're looking forward to the draft park design input from the Conway School, and that's it. We also, we're looking forward to the, any other developments that have already been set in motion around the edges. For example, the likely sale of the superintendent's house, things like that. Because as we work with the Conway School, we'll need to have them understand the boundaries of how much or how little area they're going to be working with. So no matter what, their project will be worthwhile, but it will be a better result if we start to firm up other things around the edges.
And to touch upon what Phil said, as it so happened, within the last week or so, we did get the redesign for the septic up there finally back from the engineers that we had employed for such, and the health agent is going to put that before the Board of Health to get that approved. Once that's approved, then we can go forward with the money that we put aside to do the assessment, to do the appraisal. So that's all we were waiting on.
all right.
That's good. I wanted to, I know next on our agenda is the Hanson School Repair Committee. We've already discussed that. But I did want to make a point, Mike. The school committee presented their proposed budget last February 7th. And myself, Laura, and Mike were there. I'm not certain who else, but thank you all for coming. I did see Mike Dugan from the FinCom chairman. I wanted to make it clear that that what they're proposing within that budget versus what they're not. We received clarification from that today, and after we just get the paperwork then, so you don't have time to read it all, of course. But the items in their budget, I think they talked about a $2 million shortfall. That was the approximate number. Most of it was expenses, and as opposed to the revenue shortcomings. But the items that were included in the budget are one-to-one devices. These are the Chromebooks. Year one expense for the multi-year tech plan. I think it started off at $40,000.
Yep. 2
special education teachers, one at Hanson Middle School, one at the Whitman Middle School. 1 family liaison shared at the elementary schools in both towns, Indian Head, Duval, and Conley. Instructional materials. This is the No Adam Elementary Science Program, which has been previously funded from the Gelfand Trust, just over $455,000 from the last 4 years. Those items that are not included in the budget, and this is where I think it may have been confusing, was the full day cost of kindergarten. That is something that they wish to have included in it. They did give us a breakdown of $565,000, which is a total for both towns, Hanson's share would be $226,000.
These are like wish list items.
That's a wish
Yeah.
list items. These are items not in the budget. Consistent school opening times for Whitman Elementary Schools, Duval and Conley, the foreign language program, instructional music, professional development, and instructional materials to align with updated Massachusetts curriculum frameworks. These are items, again, that were not in the budget, the proposed budget. So I wanted to make that clear. I have asked Mike to work with Todd and see if we can come up with the $226,000 to move forward with full-day kindergarten. I think that's important. I would like it not to come in an override, Mike. I don't think the town can stomach another request for overrides. It should not be happening on a yearly budget. We pay with what we can afford. And again, Mike, I understand with this additional playground for the $178,000 and the additional costs from the insurance of the building, we have to be careful to budget for these things. Hopefully, we can sell the building before those costs start to incur, but we'll see.
Well, as far as, offsets from some of these one-time expenditures, like the playground, wouldn't really come into play when we make a determination of whether or not we can afford the 266 or what have you. It would obviously have to be something we could find within the budget and was sustainable within the budget, so.
Yeah, we briefly had talked about that after the school committee meeting, that we don't want to be herky-jerky trying to figure out from year to year. It has to be sustainable and a commitment,
Right.
if the town decides that that's what we're going to do.
Oh.
But obviously, Mike, if we could afford it, I think, I'd like to, I know I'm not just the only one, but if we could present it to this board to see if they can move forward with it within the regular budget, is
Yep,
my point.
yep.
you know what I'm
And
saying?
again, Jim, I think it's important to point out that you did talk about it as, they had represented it as what it would cost for both towns, but you did have a unofficial conversation with Ruth, and it's possible to implement in one town and not the other.
That's correct. So Hanson has been very strong financially. We're doing very well. We manage our money very well. I think that's a tribute to everybody who's in our town government. And if we can afford it, why not? I think we should try to move forward with it. I think it's a great benefit. I understand some of the other items may be more important to some other people, but that's part of the debate, right? So, okay, moving on to Highway Building Committee, Mr. Mitchell.
Oh, nothing to report since last time. Probably won't have anything again for the spring, so.
All right, excellent.
So, you don't think we'll have a warrant article?
For May, no,
No.
won't be. Yeah, it's gonna be special,
Yeah, all right.
unfortunately.
Okay. As long as we keep the people updated, I think we're
Yeah.
good.
Yeah.
All right, is there anything else?
Mr. Chairman, Mary's, making sure I'm on the straight and narrow here. There's just one thing I forgot. I wanted to mention to the board that we did receive a report from the state in terms of the CPA money that they received. That obviously would go back to the CPA committee.
I was looking at that. That's
Yeah, it's
item 10 or item
42.
10?
Oh,
Yeah.
8, I think.
8? That's it.
So it's $42,920. So
Okay.
just to make sure the board is aware of what was, and it's pretty much in line with.
That's the state's portion of the CPA
Yeah.
funds, right?
Yeah,
Yep.
Excellent.
yeah, it's pretty much in keeping with
Past years?
past years. It's
They've been pretty
it's right about the
consistent.
middle. Tell you the truth.
That's a good point, Mike, because I think you're right. I looked at it. It's not the lowest. I think 2014 was the lowest at 40,810. But it's the second to lowest. The highest was 2015.
Oh, we've had back early when we adopted, I don't know how far that goes out, but
213.
yeah, so
2013.
like back in 2008, 2009, those were the heydays.
Yeah.
It's over 100 grand, isn't it?
Yeah.
Well, the state kicked in a lot more back then.
Motion to adjourn.
Second,
All right. All those in favor say aye.
aye.
Aye. We are adjourned. Thank you all.